TT Circuit Assen is renowned as a cathedral of motorcycle racing. Today the champ cars are in town and the Dutch fans are out in force, cheering on local hero Robert Doornbos. Moments away from the start of round 12 of this year's Champ Car World Series and a second and final event in a Fanos Resorts European Team Cup. Hello and welcome, my name is Jeremy Shaw, alongside me as usual James Hinchcliffe, fresh off a test at Silverstone for A1GP Team Canada. James, Sebastian Bourdais has virtually rewritten the Champ Car record books, has another opportunity to make history this afternoon.
He does, Bass by clinching his 4th consecutive championship. Ted Horn did 3 consecutive back in the 40s. No one's ever done 4, and it's a bit of a tall order this afternoon, but as we've seen so many times in the past, this man, Sebastian Bourdais, really excels in these high-pressure situations, so we could potentially see history made this afternoon.
The bottom line, if Bourdais scores 14 points more than Robert Doornbos, he will clinch that 4th consecutive Vanderbilt Cup title. As you can see, the virtually has a lock on the championship, perhaps does Bourdais, but Robert Doornbos is still very much in this fight for second place. He leads Will Power by 9 points right now. A lot of pressure on him this weekend.
It's a very big weekend for any driver racing in their hometown, and for him it's his home country. He doesn't get this opportunity. There's a lot of extra media attention, a lot more sponsor interest, and of course just the personal pressure that he'll be putting on himself. I know he's not too happy with how he qualified this afternoon, but let me tell you, this team, as we've seen so many times this season, can take a mediocre qualifying and turning it into a stunning race performance.
This is the second and final round of the Fanos Resorts European Team Cup. As we can have a look at the standings coming into this race, it's Newman Haas Lanigan racing a healthy lead over Team Australia. Of course, it's the positions from qualifying and the races that count from both of these two races. Last weekend in Zolder, this weekend at CTT Circuit Assen. Let's have a look at some of the highlights so far this weekend. Back at the wheel of car number 4 for Minardi Team USA, Dan Clark, told to sit out last weekend after causing an accident on his outlap on Friday morning. The other big story this weekend is PKB Racing. They have been very, very competitive all weekend long, both Neil Jarni and Tristan Gomondi towards the front of the pack. Justin Wilson, who was the quickest in qualifying on Friday, but really did struggle yesterday in final qualifying when it was this man once again, Sebastian Bourdais, who clinched yet another pole position. Let's have a look at the starting lineup. The 31st pole of Bourdais' career, at just one behind Michael Andretti for 5th on the all-time list. Justin Wilson will start alongside on the front row of the grid. Row 2, as I've said, all PKB Racing, Tristan Gomondi and Neil Jarni. They have been strong all weekend long.
Inside of the 3rd row, Simone Pagenaud, another of the European contingent of drivers for Team Australia, and Bourdais' teammate Graham Rahal. Jan Halen, a great starting spot for him in 7th, and Will Power really struggling this weekend.
Robert Doornbos, he wanted to do a lot better than 9th on the grid. Alongside him is Minardi Team USA teammate Dan Clark. Back on row 6, Bruno Junqueira didn't get any clear laps in qualifying for Del Coyne Racing. Alex Tagliani, he's not at all happy with his car.
The 7th row, Oriol Servio really struggling for Forsyth Championship Racing this weekend, and Catherine Lagan, a fairly good qualifying for her. 8th row, All Pacific Coast Motorsports Racing with Ryan Dial leading Alex Figge.
Alone at the back is Paul Tracy. He had a problem yesterday in final qualifying, didn't get out at all until right at the end, and then did not get a clear lap. And also had a problem this morning in the warm-up, did Paul Tracy. Had a gearbox issue with that car, just did a couple of laps at the end of the session. So he's going into the race not particularly confident, but he was very strong, particularly in practice on Saturday morning. He was 3rd fastest, so PT has not yet shown what that car is capable of, James.
No, it really is disappointing for him because he has had such a strong car all weekend, a real return to form for this team, but it all kind of went wrong in qualifying for both their cars.
It certainly did, and the other guy who's struggling is Justin Wilson. He didn't get out this morning at all. Also had a gearbox oil leak on that car, so he's gone with a completely new setup on that car and did not have a chance to test it this morning in the warm-up. When the lights come on, they will come on in sequence. When the lights go off, we will be racing for the Bavaria Beer Champ Car Grand Prix. Justin Wilson squeezing to the inside of Sebastian Bourdais. This is a very fast circuit, but it's also relatively narrow and pretty tight as well. Overtaking opportunities very much at a premium here. That was a brilliant start by Justin Wilson.
It was blistering off the line. I mean, he was starting from the dirty side of the racetrack as they head into the hairpin. That's turn 5, sliding a little bit wide. Sebastian looking, Johnny getting racy. I think there was a bit of jockeying for position back there. I think
Bourdais got a problem. Bourdais got a problem. He's slowed coming out of that corner. It's awfully difficult. You can't really miss a gear with these sequential boxes and the paddle shifting on these cars. But clearly some sort of a hiccup there coming out of that very tight turn 5 for our championship leader, Sebastian Bourdais.
Going through turn 7 now, all eyes are on him. He seems to have got back up to pace. Not sure if maybe he lost second gear or something because he was slow out of that very tight hairpin, and also that would have hurt him off the line if he was missing maybe second gear. So we'll have to look now, but we're getting where there's a full course caution on the track.
Yes, indeed, and instantly the guys are off the throttle here. We hear that car number 3 is off the road. That's Paul Tracy off in turn 1. That would be a disaster for PT, and that's a great shame for PT because he's not really been struggling all weekend. He's had the pace this weekend, unlike in several other recent races this season. But in qualifying, he had a mechanical problem, and then also in the warm-up this morning, ditto. So PT just the luck not going his way this weekend, and here he's off the road. And let's have a look at a replay of the start. Sebastian Bourdais, the pole sitter on the right-hand side of the track. As we look at it, we'd been told that he was going to take the inside of the track, which is the opposite side for the start of this race. But clearly at the last minute, he decided to move to the outside line there, away from the start. Look at this, Justin Wilson got a good jump. Looked like a clean start.
Yeah, it looked like a clean start from both guys. I mean, ultimately, Sebastian would have taken the left-hand side because that's the racing line. Traditionally, the cleaner side of the racetrack. Probably thought he was going to get a little bit better traction, but obviously that wasn't the case. Justin just outgunned him. And really just there is PT in the gravel at turn 1. What a shame for Paul Tracy. Just nothing seems to be going right this season, with the exception, of course, of the race at Cleveland, where he damaged 2 nose cones in the first couple of laps of the race and came back to win it quite remarkably. Other than that, though, it's been a very, very difficult season for the veteran Canadian. And just again, after looking at that replay of the start, kind of a role reversal there from San Jose, where Justin Wilson thought that he'd made the right call by choosing the left-hand side of the racetrack for the start of the race, but he was beaten off the line on that occasion by Sebastian Bourdais. Now the roles have been reversed. So it'll be Justin Wilson who leads early on in Assen. So as you can see, under the pace car situation here, there's a big crowd on hand, just a tremendous enthusiasm at this race, primarily known as a motorcycle venue, but there's so much enthusiasm about this Champ Car race, James. Well, these Dutch fans, they absolutely love their motorsports, 2 wheels, 4 wheels. They're usually not too picky. They show out in huge crowds, and like you say, their enthusiasm, the atmosphere that they bring to this race circuit, it's just a fantastic thing. There's over 100,000 seats here, and also great vantage points all the way around the racetrack as PT's car is lifted back onto the racetrack. Let's have a look at the on-board package here of several drivers talking their way around this TT Circuit Assen. It's 2.7 miles around, and it's tricky but fast.
Turn 1 is very important. The approach is quite fast, 7th gear. Back to 4th, and you cut quite a bit on the inside. Braking for turn 3 than it is, and there are different lines through there as well. Back on the power, and then there's a very tight hairpin, which is the slowest part of the circuit.
This is going to the 6-7 chicane. You got to be really committed into this corner. There's no exit to worry about, so it's all about the mid-corner speed. Take a little bit of the curve in 6 and in 7, and the car's a little nervous on the exit. A lot of fun though.
Turn 10, it's very easy to overdo the exit. Very easy to spin the wheels all the way to 11. The car's moving around. You're hoping it's not going to step out. Good exit. Turn 12 is easy flat, and hopefully that gives you a good start or a good finish to your lap.
Turn 15 is very fast left-hander. For us, it is flat in 7th gear, about 175 miles an hour. Then you head into turn 16, which is heavy braking, down 4 gears. And then it's pretty much your normal chicane.
And that is a lap of the TT Circuit Assen through the eyes of several of the drivers. A very enlightening lap that was as well, James, and a real challenge for the drivers. They really enjoy this racetrack.
Well, it's a gorgeous racetrack, and it's the sort of circuit that really lets these drivers test and push the limits of these DP01 Champ cars. It's very high grip car, very high horsepower, and this is the sort of thing that they really get to enjoy when they're driving.
And the race controller said there'll be one lap to go before the start, and here's one of the Minardi Team USA guys coming in for a splash of fuel. It's basically a 3/4 pit stop race. It's going to be very difficult for the drivers to make it to the end of the race, at least without having to save fuel by running just 3 pit stops. But of course, this early caution period will help them. Let's have a look at the race analysis this weekend. The racetrack here, 2.83 miles around. It's as usual, 1 hour and 45-minute race. And that will give us plenty of action this afternoon. 3 or 4 pit stops. I think certainly for Robert Dornbos it will now be a 4 pit stop race. The fuel range around about 18 laps they can do on a full tanker. It's 32 gallons of methanol fuel around this very fast but very demanding racetrack. We're on the lap now before we're getting ready to go back to green. As you can see there, Sebastian Bourdais has been shown back now in 5th position, and we're hearing word from what might have happened about Sebastian Bourdais, why he lost the lead coming out of that turn 5 hairpin, James.
Well, yeah, he went into the corner in second, but it appears as we watch a replay of the start here, maybe trying to get a look at what happened to Paul Tracy, but we're hearing that as Sebastian was exiting the hairpin, he accidentally activated the pit lane speed limiter. So obviously his car would have been limited to 50 miles an hour. As we see Bruno Junqueira, who got incredibly sideways but kept the car in slight contact with Alex Tagliani there in the hairpin on lap 1.
Yes, indeed. So all sorts of dramas on that first lap. And Pete, and we look at the charts, and Bruno Junqueira we see back in 14th place, having started in 11th. And Paul Tracy is shown, actually he's still shown on the lead lap. Is he right in I believe he is a lap down. I'm not quite sure what's the score. I think he is a lap down, Paul Tracy, so that's a disaster for him. And Alex Tagliani at the back of the field after getting together there with Bruno Junqueira in that very, very tight turn 5 hairpin. And the word is that Bourdais accidentally hit that pit lane speed limiter buttons on the steering wheel, and that's certainly an easy thing to do, particularly on a very, very tight corner like that. So the defending series champion in trouble early on. A series of flat-out kinks that there will be, at least when they're up to racing speed, getting ready for the restart here at TT Circuit Assen, the Bavaria Beer Chat Car Grand Prix. And already Justin Wilson has nailed the throttle coming down into this final chicane. Right, left, and right again, coming out onto the start-finish line. There is the green flag, and a great restart for Justin Wilson.
Brilliant restart. He really got on the power early, caught Neil Johnny a little bit off guard. He was trying to get a bit racy. He was looking to try and stay close to Justin, but was just not able to do it. I think experience getting the better hand there.
We've seen that a couple of times this season. Neil Johnny seems to have been caught out a little bit at some of the restarts. Not the first time we've seen it, because we've seen Neil running up towards the front of the pack on several occasions, of course, this season in his rookie campaign in the Champ Car World Series. Restarts apparently not his forte.
Well, again, the rolling restart, single file, is not something you typically see in Europe, and this is Neil's first season racing here in the US, so it's still something he's maybe just not quite come to grips with.
They do see him in the A1GP, and he's done quite a few races in the A1GP series, hasn't he, James?
It's true, but there's not as many safety cars, I guess, in A1GP, and we do the rolling start for the sprint race, but that's a side-by-side start, something more like that. The single file, it just doesn't happen as often as it does here.
I spoke to Craig Hampson again. He said not only was that what happened to Sebastian Bourdais in that instance, but he thinks it's connected to the problem earlier in the year when some of the drivers were hitting push to pass and the cars were slowing down, some kind of an electronics issue, but they don't feel right now that it is going to happen again. Sebastian says everything seems to be back to normal.
Thank you, Bill Stevens, our pit lane reporter this weekend, and talking there about Sebastian hitting that pit lane speed limiter button. It's just one of many buttons on the steering wheel when you're all arms and elbows turning into that very tight turn 5 hairpin on the very first lap of the race with cold tires still, of course. The car sliding around. You're doing a lot of correcting there. Probably quite easy to hit that button inadvertently. Yeah,
it certainly is. I mean, it's happened a lot of time. It used to be a big problem in Long Beach in the hairpin there. I know Paul Tracy actually lost a race to Sebastian Bourdais doing that very thing. So it is possible. It's something that you think by this point of the weekend they would have kind of had sorted if it was going to be a problem. What sometimes the teams do, what they've done in Long Beach in the past, is actually move the button on the steering wheel, assign the pit lane speed limiter to a different button that is less likely to be caught by the driver when they're cross over their arms like that. But I guess it's not been a problem for...
Just to bring you guys up to date, during that yellow period just a few laps ago, we saw Oriol Servia come in. We saw Paul Tracy come in. You saw him go to the back of the pack. Robert Dornbos came in. So already those alternate fuel strategies are coming into place.
So we're on board with Justin Wilson. We're on lap 5 out of what we expect to see something around about 75 laps if it goes green from here on out in a 1 hour and 45-minute race. A great start for Justin Wilson. He came into the race here this afternoon with a good deal of trepidation. He was quickest on Friday, delighted with the car then, but that was in wet, dry conditions in the first period of qualifying. Yesterday when it was full dry, not happy at all with that car. The CCWS car of the Roux Sport team made a lot of changes to it overnight. Unfortunately, because of the gearbox problem this morning, and it was a big gearbox oil leak, it pumped out all the oil on the outlap this morning in the warm-up, so it did not get a chance to assess how those changes to the setup of the car was going to affect the handling, James Hinchcliffe, and that certainly is going to make life very difficult for Justin Wilson, so even better for him to get the lead at the start.
Absolutely, and what this is doing is it's proving how professional and how good Justin really is, because that's a very difficult situation mentally for a driver to be in, having a whole new setup on the car and not having a chance to try it before being thrown into racing conditions. Now on top of that, he's leading the race, so the pressure's on even more. All eyes are on him, and he's doing a great job. So it looks like the Roux Sport team have managed to give him a relatively decent car at this point.
Just a quick review of the scroll at the top of the screen. You'll see lap 5. That's lap 5 completed. That's a slight change to the way that works in the scoring system this weekend. Generally speaking, it's which lap we are on. Now it shows how many laps have been completed. Quick look there at Graham Rahal. He's been very strong this weekend for Newman Haas Lanigan Racing. And of course, in the last 4 races, Graham Rahal, the rookie, has had 3 podium finishes. He's on a tear. Could he possibly win this weekend?
Anything's possible in the Champ Car World Series, Jeremy. And like you say, he certainly had the pace, and it's, the driver's been saying it's a bit of a difficult track to pass on, but ultimately if pit strategy, plays out, maybe 1 or 2 on-track passes, some great pit stops, some mistakes from other guys, anything's possible.
And particularly if you're having to save fuel, which we think that everybody is going to have to be doing this afternoon, you think you can make it on just 3 pit stops in this 1 hour and 45-minute race, but it's certainly going to be very, very tight. Fuel consumption, I was speaking to Sebastian Bourdais this morning. He was telling me that the fuel consumption they're getting here is a little bit more than they had originally anticipated, so it's certainly going to be a struggle to reach the end on just 3 pit stops. And Sebastian said, there's no doubt, particularly in the first stint of the race, they're going to have to be conserving as much fuel as they possibly can. I'm sure that's why he is now not beginning to put too much pressure on his teammate there, Graham Rahal.
Fair enough, and that's also, I guess Justin Wilson's also in a good position now because he can kind of control the pace of the race. He can, with a tighter track, a little bit more difficult to pass, he can be a little bit more conservative with his fuel consumption as well and try and make sure that he hits his projected fuel numbers.
And see who has made pit stops. So during that early yellow, Bill Stevens is on the pit lane.
They sure did. A la San Jose, you'll remember a couple of races ago that they were starting on the front row and had a mechanical problem early in the race, ended their chances. They had a broken oil line on the transmission this morning and got virtually no laps in the morning practice. But it seems as if it's not going to be a factor, at least not yet.
Thanks, Bill. Actually talking there about Justin Wilson, my apologies. Talking about Justin not having the opportunity to test out that car this morning. Just talking there about the cars that did make a pit stop under that early caution period. We saw Robert Dornbos on pit lane, also Ryan Dial for Pacific Coast Motorsports. And Ryan Dial was 6th quickest this morning in the warm-up. Oriol Servia also onto pit lane, as was Alex Tagliani. The second of his PCM cars, Alex Figge, and Paul Tracy also into the pit lane. So the top 11 cars in the race right now have not yet made a pit stop. And Robert Dornbos, interestingly, now in 12th place, so has not yet been able to find a way past Catherine Legge. Junqueira is shown in 10th place and has set the fastest lap of the race so far, a 1:23.161. And Bill Stevens is certainly trying to have a word with Jimmy Vasser, who's one of the co-owners of PKV Racing, and his guys running very, very strong in the early stages of this race. Giorgiani in 2nd place and Tristan Gomondy in 3rd, having monopolised the 2nd row of the grid for PKV Racing. And certainly it's a big upturn in fortunes. So second best overall qualifying performance, if you like, of this team. Back in Milwaukee in 05, Jimmy Vasser was on the pole position, and his then teammate Cristiano D'Amata started in 4th position, also on the 2nd row of the grid. So it's been a very strong weekend for PKV Racing, and that is great to see, because they've been certainly, I think, they've been quick on several occasions this year, but they haven't shown the consistency that they would really like from this organisation. But this weekend, maybe that's the beginning to turn things around. Bill Stevens with Jimmy Vasser.
You can say that again, Rick, down here with Jimmy Vasser watching his 2 drivers, Johnny and Golmandy. So many times this year you've had to resort to an alternate fuel strategy because of your grid position. The way your guys are running today could be a lot less complicated, Jimmy.
Well, I sure hope so. Both the Red Bull car and the pay-by-touch car, those guys have been doing a great job all weekend. The cars are obviously quick, so right now it's a pretty straightforward strategy. Try to save a little bit of fuel early and maybe go an extra lap is what we're trying to do.
Did you anticipate maybe having to shadow Sebastian today and have to decide whether to press him or to just lay back?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what happened there at the start. Looks like he had some problems, off the line and then after a couple corners. So, but he looks like he's settling in. He's definitely still going to be tough.
He's still Sebastian Bourdais.
He is indeed, Bill Sims. He is Sebastian Bourdais. He's running in 5th place right now, as you can see there, as they come through the chicane one more time to complete lap 9. Out of this 1 hour and 45 minutes race, it's Justin Wilson from Neil Jarni, Tristan Gomandy there close behind in 3rd place. Then the 2 Newman Haas Lanigan cars of Graham Rahal and Simon Pageant and Sebastian Bourdais. Then the other Frenchman, Simon Pagenaud, in 6th place for Team Australia, ahead of Jan Halen. And let's talk about Jan Halen. He's done a great job this weekend for Conquest Racing.
And not just this weekend. He's been on a bit of a roll the last few races, Jeremy. He's really stepped up his pace. That team stepped up the car, and he's doing a great job this weekend. Since he's topped the session, I think, at least twice so far this weekend. He's really had the pace, so he's looking forward to a good race this afternoon.
Yeah, that's right. He was quickest in the pre-qualifying practice session on Friday morning, and also yesterday morning, on the Saturday morning practice session, he was quickest then as well, I believe.
Was it this morning, maybe?
Okay, well, certainly been quick all weekend long as Jan Halen there, and is the second car in the picture there is Jan Halen, the graphic print car of Conquest Racing. And as you say, James Hinchcliffe, he's been just getting better and better as this season has progressed. Of course, he missed the first 3 races of the campaign. Matthew Halliday from New Zealand drove this car. Unfortunately, his funding ran out after poor old Matt had absolutely no luck in those first 3 races. And Jan Halen, when he stepped into that number 34 car, he carried number 42 in the first 3 races, 34 after Jan Halen got into the car, he had no luck either for the first 3 times out in the car, but lately it's beginning to turn around, and now certainly a consistent, at the very least, top 10 runner is Jan Halen.
Well, I mean, he even had bad luck last weekend at his home race at Zolder, but he turned that around after that accident he was involved in on the opening lap of Friday practice for a very good result, considering he missed all running on Friday. So he's really come on form. He's driving very well. Like I said, the team's performing a little better, and they're just kind of growing together, and their performances just keep improving, and it's really good to see.
It certainly is. A 6th place finish at Road America a few weeks ago, and running in the top 3 was last week until making a pit stop in the closing stages. So the early laps here in TT Assen, and it's Justin Wilson leads. Now, so Dan Clark looking to make amends. I'd like to give a special welcome to our viewers across Europe on Eurosport 2, joining us today for the final event in the Fanos Resorts European Team Cup. Great to have you with us. My name is Jeremy Shaw, alongside James Hinchcliffe, Bill Stevens in the pit lane at TT Circuit Assen. And after a fabulous start, it's Justin Wilson who leads for the CDW car of the Rousport team. He's been absolutely on superb form this weekend, as Justin Wilson, quickest in qualifying on Friday, struggled on Saturday, then did not get a chance to assess how the changes they'd made to the car overnight were working on the car this morning, because he had a gearbox problem this morning, but now he's doing a great job of running out front, and he seems to be pretty consistent as well. Not very fast, however, in the early stages.
And that's what makes me think that, maybe the car isn't quite to his liking. He only has the 11th fastest lap time, and with how fast this circuit is, as close as Neil Johnny's able to run to him right now, makes me think that Neil really does have a quicker car. I mean, Justin certainly isn't pulling away. He's running consistent lap times, but he's got a queue behind him now. It makes me think that maybe the car's not quite to his liking.
Plus, I think he is in a fuel-saving mode as well. We've talked about that already, the fact that it's very difficult to reach the end of this race with just 3 pit stops. And we talked about it right from the top of the show that we knew we were going to see drivers looking to save fuel. And I think, was that Jan Halen making a pass? Yes, it was. Jan Halen squeezing past Simon Pagenaud for 6th place at the chicane. A great move by Jan Halen.
Brilliant stuff. I mean, now he's tracking down the 3-time series champion Sebastian Bourdais. So he put a very good move there on on Simon. It's in the early stage of the race, but obviously it's not holding. Jan Halen's not holding back at all.
On board here with Robert Doornbos. On-board footage here from Robert Doornbos, running in 11th place in the early stages of this race. Let me say that Catherine Legg has set the fastest lap. She is running, she's the car directly ahead of Robert Doornbos, and Catherine Legg has done a 1:22.6, currently the fastest lap of this race. And Bill Stevens is trying to have a word with Michael Cannon, who is the race engineer for this man, Robert Doornbos. And as Michael Cannon's been saying all weekend long, there's a lot of pressure on him as a race engineer to give Doornbos a good car. Bill Stevens.
Michael, we need your thought process. After bringing him in on the first yellow, now what's the plan?
Well, I mean, obviously we just try and go one more lap to everybody. We know we can make a spot there, get closer to the leaders. We see where Sebastian is. It gets us closer to Sebastian. We just hope for the best.
Guys, one of the things Michael told me this morning
is
apparently we're not destined to know that.
Well, I think he was going to say, what he was going to say there, I think, was the fact that Michael Cannon feels as much pressure as does Robert Doornbos, because he knows he didn't give Robert perhaps the car that he needed to show his true pace in qualifying, but he does need to give him a good car for the race.
Yeah, I mean, Michael Cannon, he really is a class act there, and he knows that his driver is very capable, and the fact they only qualified 9th, he will have put a lot of the blame on himself, as competitive as he is. So he's looking forward to trying getting these results, and it's like I said at the top of the show. I mean, with the strategy they played in some of these races, they pulled off some pretty spectacular results when nobody thought they could. So I know he might be only running. What is he? He's 11th right now, but definitely do not count out the 14 car just yet.
Absolutely right. You think back to San Jose, of course, when he was involved in the 2 incidents in the early stages of that race, Robert Doornbos, and came back to win it. Right now, though, it's Justin Wilson out in front. We are 13 laps completed, and Justin has just set his best lap of the race, a 1:22.9, and we're back under full course yellow again, we believe. Not quite sure yet why that is. I was just going to say we'll be expecting pit stops somewhere around about lap 17, lap 19 perhaps, but if we're now speaking to various of the engineers, they were telling us if there is a full course caution, we're hearing there's debris of some sort in turn 10. A full course caution, it's a long racetrack here, and particularly when the drivers are saving fuel, it's a very slow lap around this 2.8 mile circuit, and you'll probably, for every lap under caution, it'll probably shorten the potential race distance by as much as 2 laps. And also under caution, the drivers will be able to get kind of 2 for 1. They'll probably be able to get 1 lap for what would otherwise be 2 laps worth of fuel. So this is going to help them in every conceivable way for these guys trying to make the race on just 3 pit stops, James.
Yeah, and I think between that first caution period and then now that this second caution period here, this should open up the right opportunity for everyone to come in and make their first scheduled pit stops. And now, as we saw, some of the crews now getting ready. Now, did see it was Oriol Servia, Robert Doornbos, Paul Tracy also already pitted. Dial, Tagliani, Figgy, a bunch of drivers, Drinkera as well, have already pitted, so they'll have slightly less fuel to get, be a slightly shorter fuel stop for them, so they might be able to jump up a few positions in these first rounds.
Yeah, the bad news for them, if you like, the first caution was only on lap 2, so they've used only 3 or 4 gallons worth of fuel, so it won't be much less fuel they take on board. But certainly this pit stop now is going to come with 14 laps in the books, so 15 laps in the books. That's certainly a little bit earlier than they were hoping to get, so I think they would have liked to get to lap 17 or 18 in order to make it just a 3 pit stop race. So this might turn it into a 4-stop race for everybody. That we will have to wait and see. So a long way to go under caution here in Assen. The crowd there out on the far end of the racetrack, and great vantage points here, big spectator banking. There's 100,000 permanent seats here at Assen, just a remarkable place. And all the way around the rest, or much of the way around the rest of the racetrack, these big earthen embankments where the fans can sit and just soak up the action. And just talking to everybody this morning, the crowd is beginning to pour in at 6 o'clock this morning, and it's just a great feeling. And several of the teams and drivers have been telling us they have these sort of porter cabins where they use for their engineering debriefs, and just to get from those cabins to the pit lane garages can take them quite a few minutes to get across what has been a packed garage area this weekend. The Dutch fans really enjoying the access they get to the Champ Car drivers. Here we are, they're getting ready for action now on the pit lane. It'll be down to the pit crews now as everybody is onto pit lane for service. Bill Stevens is going to be in the Rooseport pit, getting ready for our race leader, Justin Wilson.
And his crew is ready. This looks like a wholesale tire sale along pit road. Every team coming in just about. Justin is in. Let's see what they do with the fuel. Primary tires on. The reds have come off, but watch the fuel filler. It's out. And Johnny looked like he took a full load. It just gets out ahead of Neil Johnny.
I think everybody could have taken on a full load here, Bill, but as you can see there, apparently no change at the front apart from Jan Halen, who's jumped ahead of Sebastian Bourdais. Fabulous work by Conquest Racing there, and this is just great news for those guys. This little team, just a one-car team, all the other teams along pit lane, 2-car outfits, of course, that's a big benefit for them. They get all the data from 2 drivers to compare with a brand new DP01 chassis this year. It's certainly one would think it would help the teams to have 2 cars, but Conquest Racing, not only is one of the smaller budget teams, but just 1 car to work with and 2 different drivers, which doesn't make it any easier either. But great pit work there by Conquest Racing.
Yeah, they really did do a good job, but as you just saw going out of your screen there, Bourdais Cara did not pit, so he is actually in the lead of this race right now. Justin Wilson has come out behind him. I'm not sure if there's anyone else who did not pit, but we certainly saw Bruno stay out there. Here's a replay of Justin pulling out of the pits with Neil Johnny just right behind him. That was a close call. I mean, and another one there with, contact so nearly between Galmody and Rahal.
And it's a pretty narrow pit lane here in Assen, of course. It's primarily built as a motorcycle track, so we don't need a lot of width on the racetrack, or I should say in the pit lane. Paul Tracy here is out of the car number 3, the Index car, and PT, just a dreadful weekend for him. Just nothing gone his way. He's been fast enough, but hasn't been able to show it. And we hear now he's out of the race with just a dozen laps in the books. There is PT, and there's his race engineer Eric Zito on the left of the picture. And for poor PT, it's just gone from bad to worse.
Yeah, it seems to be an oil pressure problem with Paul's car there. Don't know if that's a result of his off earlier in the race. Quite possibly. Tough to tell at this point. But now we're back on board with Graham Rahal, but Justin Wilson will be pacing the field. Trying to see now if Bourdais Cara maybe then did end up getting into the pit lane. No, he is. He is still leading the field, and they will be going green this time by Bourdais Cara. He's already on the throttle, but Neil Johnny very close to the back with Justin Wilson as they head into this final corner to get the green flag.
So interesting strategy there from Dale Coyne Racing. Perhaps they're hoping that Bruno can stretch his fuel a little bit. He's only going to be able to do probably another 4 or 5 laps before he has to come onto pit lane as the green flag waves. But if he can then reach at the end on just 3 pit stops, that's the same number of pit stops as everybody else is going to have to make. So once again, Dale Coyne, it might be a little team, but it's a little team that could. They almost did last weekend at Zolder. A brilliant second place finish. And again, it was strategy that put Bourdais Cara in a position to almost win that race 1 week ago. Bill Stevens with Paul Tracy.
Down here with a disappointed Paul Tracy. Man, what a weekend it's been.
Yeah, it's been very frustrating for the team. You know, we've had a good car all weekend, but just bad luck and just things have happened all weekend that's just put us behind. And I made a great start and I passed 6 or 8 cars in the first corner and then got squeezed by another car and I spun. And then after that, the gearbox lost oil pressure and finally the gearbox just quit. So it was stuck in 1 gear and making all kinds of noise. So it's disappointing for everybody on the team, and we just keep finding new lows. You know, it's frustrating because you think you're at the bottom and the only way it can get better, but it just keeps getting worse.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Paul. Better luck next race.
You can just hear the rejection in his voice, James.
Yeah, it's really been a struggle this year for him, and he didn't have a great season in 2006, or really in 2005. I mean, and it's not always been his fault. I mean, he's quite often had the pace and either been wrong place, wrong time, bad luck, things like this. So it's very difficult for him and that entire Forsyth team. But back on track, Neil Johnny looking very racy at the front, trying to get by Justin Wilson, but it's Bruno Junqueira who's absolutely checked out. And Bruno Junqueira, he's the one who really needs to save fuel at this point. He needs to stretch it, and if he can avoid that extra stop. But he must have a very good car under him. He's got the fastest lap of the race right now. He's leading and pulling away while still trying to save fuel, while this man Justin Wilson's struggling, and he's got 2 cars from PKV very hungry right behind him.
That's right, of course. Bruno Junqueira has a much lighter car, of course, than does Justin Wilson. Justin just came on, put a full tank of fuel. There was Bruno just stepping a little bit off track possibly as he came through that section, but he's certainly running well now, taking advantage of the fact he's got a light car, Bruno Junqueira, and trying to put a little bit of distance between himself and the rest of the field. And as you said, he took the fastest lap away from his Dale Coyne Racing teammate Catherine Legg right before this caution period, and now Bruno is trying to turn some quick laps here. He's still going to rejoin at the back of the pack after he makes his, what will be his, I believe, second pit stop of the day, because he did come in and...
Yeah, he came in for that splash.
No, he came in yes, didn't he? Right before we went back to green.
First yellow, yeah.
So it's Bruno Junqueira who leads here now, and there he's just clipping that corner marker there at the chicane, and he leads across the line. This time around was a 1 minute 24.0, so a couple of seconds slower than the best lap that he's already turned in this race. I fancy now maybe another couple of laps. Maybe he can stretch it to lap... well, it's just probably several more laps before he comes onto pit lane, can't he? Because he was showing that he came in actually on lap 8. I thought he'd been in earlier than that, but it was right after the restart, I think, that Bruno came onto pit lane.
That's right. He actually, we did hear that he missed the call from his pit crew to come in during that yellow, so he actually did pit under green, Jeremy. That's correct. Once we had gone back after that restart, so he is again a little bit off sequence. But like we said, strategy was what gave them that second place, their best ever finish for Dale Coyne Racing last week. And once again, I mean, when you know you're a little bit behind in car setup and pace, and certainly where Bruno qualified, you kind of have to roll the dice a little bit. That's what these guys do so well, and they're proving it once again. Yeah, of course, in Zolder last week, he was not short on pace at all. He qualified in 4th place. That equaled the best ever result in qualifying for Dale Coyne Racing, and he was very quick in the race as well. Unfortunately, they had a bad first pit stop. The wheel gun failed on Bruno Junqueira's car, put into the back of the pack, and then it was a strategy that got Bruno back to the front, and he took over from there, and he was passed only by Sebastian Bourdais in the closing stages and finishing second. Around. Well, this now is Robert heading into the he was heading into the 6-7 complex there, but it was some great onboard footage there. It's so nice to hear that Cosworth XFE engine revving to the max, and especially through that back section down the straightaway, through the straightaway, quote unquote. Of course, it's very turny and kinky through there, but it's now this man Bruno Junqueira who seems to really enjoy this racetrack. He's over 4 seconds now ahead of Justin Wilson, just doing a fantastic job, and I think Justin really seems to be holding up the guys behind him. He's kind of holding on for dear life at this point. That car really not where he wants it to be.
No, I think you're absolutely right, and I think at least a part of this is the fact that Justin Wilson is maybe trying to make the race on 3 pit stops. He knows it's difficult to overtake on this racetrack, and if he doesn't make any mistakes in the crucial parts of the racetrack, which is primarily coming out of turn 11 and onto the sort of the kinks of the main straightaway before the final chicane, then it's going to be very difficult for anybody else to get past him as long as he doesn't make a mistake. Look at the power to pass. We've got 75 seconds worth of the Cosworth power to pass this weekend. As regular viewers will know, the button on the steering wheel, when the drivers activate that button, activate an electronic system on the car, it gives them about another 300 RPMs of this Ford Cosworth XFE engine. It generally revs to 12,000 RPMs, gives them 12,300 RPM, but an extra 50 horsepower. And you can see how much they've got left Justin Wilson not used any of his power to pass yet, nor has Tristan Gomandy, and some of the other guys use it to a greater or lesser extent. And Bruno Junqueira, the race leader, with 56 seconds worth left out of 75, and still a long, long way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to note quickly, Graham Rahal about 2 laps ago had some sort of problem. He had a very, very slow lap, a 127. The leader right now running 122s, just as a bit of a reference, and he fell back all the way to 9th place. I mean, he was running, I think, 5th. So a bit of a problem for Graham. We're not quite sure what it was that caused that, but just look at the gap that he has pulled out, and now look at the queue behind Justin Wilson. That is from 2nd down to 9th place, all running nose to tail. And this man, Jan Halen, obviously just coming into his own. He's got by. Oh, there he goes. He goes by Neil Johnny. Neil Johnny slowing. Tristan Gomandy has got by him, and now Sebastian Bourdais. There is definitely a problem on that PKV car.
Yes, indeed, and you can see they're going into turn 2. There's Jan Halen looking at the brakes, and Neil Johnny trying to brave it out with Sebastian Bourdais side by side. And I think there's using the push to power to pass there, which I believe
Dan Clark. Dan Clark trying to get by Neil Johnny now.
I'm just watching the instant messenger system here as Dan Clark squeezes alongside Neil Johnny going into
it's a 6-7.
Isn't it? Yeah, the kind of chicane there on the backside of the racetrack, and there's an instant message gone out from race control to the teams saying that the cars are not supposed to be using the power to pass button. Apparently several guys have used it in the early stages of this race, and when they've pressed the power to pass, it has somehow enabled the pit lane speed limiter. So there's a directive going out from race control not to use the positive power to pass. We'll try and find out more about that as this very interesting race scenario develops. But in the meantime, it's still Bruno Junqueira out in front of the field now, a 5-second plus lead over the rest of the guys. And Justin Wilson still holding on to 2nd place, but now it's Tristan Gomandy, the other PKB car, who is putting the pressure now on Justin Wilson. Behind him, Jan Halen, then Sebastian Bourdais, Dan Clark, Neil Johnny, Will Power, and then Graham Rahal's fallen all the way back to 9th place. We didn't see what happened to Graham Rahal. And Bill Stevens is with the Newman Haas Lanigan team manager, TZ Tuzanakis.
John Tuzanakis is on the radio right now, and Graham Rahal went off the track not once, twice, but 3 times during practice this weekend as he was trying to get used to the racetrack and make the adjustments to the cars you mentioned, John. This has been one team that has really been trying to noodle out their combination. But right now, as you mentioned, he is losing position, and John Tuzanakis on the radio right now trying to troubleshoot the problem that Graham is having. Obviously, he's not keeping the pace that he had earlier in the race. John, what can you tell us about Graham's pace? He's falling back.
Yes, we've had a little bit of a problem. A problem, I think, with the Cosworth push to pass, where they are telling the drivers not to use it for the rest of the race. There's a software bug, so we think maybe we tried it and it put the PLC on, so we think that may have been a problem, but our pace is okay right now, so hopefully we can get back up a bit more.
Both Newman Haas Lanigan cars victimized by that power to pass issue.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought Bourdais would have been using it coming out of turn 2 or turn 5 on the very first lap of the race. That would sort of be uncharacteristic if he did so. But certainly, it can be. It looks like TZ there is trying to blame the problem on a software issue that perhaps the Cosworth engineers have brought on. But it is, as we've seen several times during the season, it's fairly easy for the driver to get somehow confused in the heat of the battle and press the wrong button.
Well, I mean, just from that interview, I mean, what he said was, we think what may have happened was he may have hit the push to pass, and what that means is that he doesn't know for sure. And if Graham had pushed the push to pass and the power to pass, and it engaged the pit lane speed limiter, he would have been all over the radio telling them exactly what had happened. So that makes me think that might not have been the case.
Yes, indeed. And there is Jan Halen has got his way up now ahead of Tristan Gomandy, and the green and white car, the Conquest Racing machine, Belgian ownership, Eric Bachelard, Belgian driver Jan Halen. He was disappointed with his final result last weekend, but he was certainly running in the top 3 before he was obliged to make a late splash and go pit stop. And he's certainly running well, extremely well this weekend, being quickest in 2 separate sessions as the weekend has progressed. Jan Halen doing a great job, and so is this man Bruno Junqueira. It's been a while since he scored his latest victory in his career. Bruno Junqueira, this is his 99th start. He's got 8 wins to his credit as Bruno Junqueira, and also 16 second place finishes over his career. And boy, would he love to get another victory, and it would be the first ever for Dale Coyne Racing, which has been in this series since 1984.
This is just great stuff that we're seeing. I mean, and he's been close to Justin Wilson. I mean, just a few corners ago, we saw him looking on the inside of Justin heading into the final chicane there. So he's got the pace. He's certainly getting racy. But now Gomadi may be back on the attack, looking close enough for a move. He ducks out, not quite close enough to make it into turn 6.
Yes, a difficult place to overtake that. It's fairly fast approach to that chicane, probably taken in 4th gear at about 120 miles an hour. So it's there's not much braking into that corner, and it certainly would be a very, very difficult place to try and make a pass.
I'm still just really baffled at this software issue they're having with these cars, Jeremy. I mean, obviously, we've been running here now. This is the 12th round of the championship, so these cars are pretty well sorted. It's very bizarre that something like this is happening, and that it's happening so widespread amongst the cars. So, I mean, it's been happening on some cars, but right as we got that word from race control, we saw Dan Clark and Neil Johnny both on their power to pass, apparently with no issues. So I can understand Tony Kottman's call, very wise call, because that's a serious safety concern if in the middle of a straightaway and a guy's drafting you and you hit the power to pass, as a defensive mechanism, and all of a sudden your car slows to 50 miles an hour, there could be serious implications there. So I think a great heads-up call from Tony Kottman, but still, it's a very bizarre situation to have.
It certainly is. There is that big train of cars there. Neil Johnny now at the tail end of that pack. He was running in 2nd place in the early stages, now back in 7th, as there goes Bruno Junqueira, well out in the lead now, ahead of Justin Wilson and pulling away. And in the meantime, I should tell you that Catherine Legg has dropped all the way down to 16th place. The last car running, Paul Tracy, the only retirement from the event after 26 laps. So it's Bruno Junqueira for Dale Coyne Racing out in front, and Catherine at the back, having been running well earlier on. So I don't know whether conceivably Catherine had the same sort of a problem, or else she was off the road. I didn't certainly hear anything as to what caused her to fall to the back of the pack, having been running pretty well in the midfield. Kind of the second pack of cars, well, the first pack of cars consisting of just one, I guess you should say. That's Bruno Junqueira, and then the battle for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th down to Neil Johnny and Will Power. And here is Will Power holding off Graham Rahal there. That's the battle for 8th and 9th. The second of the Team Australia cars, Simon Pagenaud there, 3rd in that train, with Robert Dornbosch running in 11th place. Great early action here, and there is right behind Sebastian Bourdais is Dan Clark, and then Neil Johnny. Certainly Dan Clark is having a good run this afternoon.
Yeah, he is. I mean, his return to racing, he's done really well. I mean, he qualified just one position behind his teammate, obviously his teammate contending for the championship, and so he's been keeping pace with him, and just Neil Johnny now right behind him. Again, it's Neil Johnny who, again, just fell back so many places. Maybe, again, this pit lane speed limiter coming on. Just very bizarre circumstances.
Yeah, certainly some sort of a problem for Neil Johnny in that Red Bull car for PKV Racing.
Well, Rick, this morning I actually sat down and had a little breakfast with Neil Johnny, and I think we've all noticed the improvement he's made this year on being able to drive the car quickly and also save fuel. He said that in preseason testing, the emphasis for his team was to make quick laps. They really did not practice how to save fuel and go quickly. So the first few races of the year was a learning curve for him. He thinks now that he's as good as just about anybody when it comes to doing both.
That's certainly interesting for Neil Johnny there, and just talking again about Dan Clark. It was a bit of an eye-opener for him last weekend. Of course, he was told that he wasn't going to be able to race, and he certainly accepted that decision, with some magnanimity. And whoa, yeah, there's something flying there. What was that?
That was one of the pylons from the inside of the corner there. It was knocked off by Justin Wilson, then hit by a few other drivers, and I wonder if that maybe damaged a wing, as our leader, Bruno Junqueira, is in the pits.
So the first routine pit stop under green flag conditions for Dale Coyne Racing. Looked like a good stop there. They're waiting there on the back of the car. It's certainly a little bit longer than he would have liked, but otherwise not a bad start for Bruno Junqueira. He will fall, I'm pretty sure, to the very back of the field, but now he's on a different strategy to everybody else. He's about 10 laps out of sequence with the rest of the field. And he's done well, I believe, to eke out that fuel. He did 19 laps before he came on. The last pit stop was after 9 laps, I believe it was, or 8 or 9 laps. Now he comes in on lap 28. So that's certainly a good stint's worth of fuel that he's eked out of that number 19 Sonny's barbecue car. But now he'll be at the back of the pack and in catch-up mode. And in the meantime, it's Justin Wilson at the front. But Justin Wilson certainly isn't running as quickly as many of the other cars, particularly Bruno Junqueira. And he hit that bollard in the chicane there. And as you're talking about, James Hinchcliffe, several other drivers have hit those chicane markers as the weekend has developed and done quite a bit of damage to their cars.
Well, that was actually what put Paul Tracy out of qualifying. He hit one, collapsed his suspension, and it was all out for him. But it's Justin Wilson now back in front over Jan Halen and Tristan Gomedy here at Assen.
There are immediate identities. Champ car on its European vacation. The drivers and teams are not just racing for wins, but also the Fanos Resorts European Team Cup. Much like the Canadian Triple Crown won by Team Australia, the Fanos European Team Cup pits the teams against each other during a two-race European swing. Drivers earn points during both qualifying sessions and the races. And the team with the most points after the finish of today's Bavaria Beer Champ Car Grand Prix will hoist the Fanos European Cup. Right now that would appear to be falling the way of Newman Haas Lanigan Racing, led of course by that man, the McDonald's car of Sebastian Bourdais, who's seeking to become the first man ever to win 4 consecutive Vanderbilt Cup trophies. And we're on a full course caution one more time here, the third caution of the day on lap 29. We know not yet why that is, but immediately the teams and drivers go into full fuel-saving mode, and Justin Wilson leads the pack ahead of Jan Halen, Tristan Gomedy, then Sebastian Bourdais, Dan Clark and Neil Jarley rounding out the top 6, followed by Will Power. Then Graham Rahal, Simon Pagenaud and Robert Dornbos in 10th, and Oriol Servia, Ryan Dial, Alex Tagliani, Alex Figge, Catherine Legg, and then Bruno Junqueira at the back. And certainly this caution is very good news for Bruno Junqueira.
This is exactly what he needed. This not only allows him to close up the 10-second gap it was to the second last car in that train, so he's closed right up now, just got a free 10 seconds. He's now saving fuel, and you know, everyone was going to have to do it on 2 more stops, including Bruno, unless they got a few more caution laps. Now they're getting that. This is starting to fall his way, and you know, it's now lap 30. Most cars came in on lap 15, so it's a little bit early-ish to maximize that window. So some guys, you know, it's going to be
no option. No option. They're going to have to come in now. It's too close to the end of the window in order to gamble on staying out. We saw Bruno stay out last time, but he was on a different strategy to everybody else. He'd been in on lap 8 in the early stages of the race. Again, great strategy by Dale Coyne Racing. So a long, long way to go. You want more Champ Car race action? Subscribe to Race Director. Just go to www.champcar.ws and choose from 6 different camera angles while you listen to team radio communications and view the live telemetry, all on your home computer. So here we are in the TT Circuit Assen in northeastern Holland. Flatlands here. But it's a great racetrack, a real challenge for the drivers, even if it doesn't have any elevation changes. And we're under caution for the 3rd time this afternoon. Jeremy Shaw with James Hinchcliffe and Bill Stevens in the pit lane. And the pit lane is where the action is going to get hot and heavy in just a few minutes, as most of the cars, all except I believe Bruno Junqueira, will be on the pit lane one more time. There are the pit lane crews all standing ready and waiting for their men. There is Justin, and look in second place, it's Jan Halen. The Conquest Racing boys had a brilliant stop last time and enabled him to vault ahead of Sebastian Bourdais, and since then he's moved ahead also of Neil Jarley and Tristan Gomedy. And Jan Halen in second place. Can those guys do it again, James?
It's very possible. I mean, like you say, things have been going their way, so we'll see where it all plays out.
Unless they are opted to maybe already go for a 4-stop strategy, put in a little bit less fuel on that first hit. So, as we said, all sorts of strategies to be played out, and these caution periods are going to make things really more interesting, not less exciting. In Ricardo, it's Justin Wilson who leads the guys down to that 40-mile-an-hour speed limit on the pit lane. There, the fueling goes in. You can hear the rev limiter as he comes down the pit lane. The final stop is simply the brand new set. Well, not brand new set, but a fresh set. He ran over a hose there, didn't he? That was that Dan Clark? Or was it Robert Dornbos? I think it was Dan Clark, who comes out there in third place, apparently. It's Justin Wilson who got out first again. I'm fairly sure that Bruno Junqueira did not bring his car onto pit lane. What a problem for Sebastian Bourdais too.
Very slow getting away from his grid stall.
Wow.
That's Catherine Legg in front of him, so he's essentially down to last place.
Wow, major implications here in terms of Sebastian Bourdais' bid to win, or clinch, I should say, his 4th consecutive Vanderbilt Cup trophy. Going into the weekend, really all he needed to do, well, if he scored 15 more points than Robert Dornbos, then it was all over. He would clinch that championship. In actual fact, even if Bourdais were to start the final, or just start the final 2 races of the season, that would enable him to earn 8 points in total. You get 4 points for a 17th place finish. If he did that on 2 occasions, that would mean really, excuse me, he needs only a 60-point lead after this race. But certainly this apparently some sort of a problem in the pit lane when he comes out in dead last position is going to make his job in terms of clinching the championship very, very difficult. I think all he's got to do now is damage limitation. He's still going to have a very handy lead at the end of this race in terms of the points battle. So look at the race summary, just about exactly halfway through this 1 hour and 45-minute race in the Bavaria Beer Champ Car Grand Prix of Holland. The current race leader is Justin Wilson. We've had a couple of lead changes. He and Bruno Junqueira have, well, actually the current race leader, when they come across start-finish line this time around, will be Bruno Junqueira. Just 1 car out of the race at this stage. That the Forsyth Championship racing car of Paul Tracy.
Yeah, just a disastrous weekend for him. And just thinking back to those last round of pit stops, I worry for Dan Clark. I mean, running over an air hose is that's a penalty. I mean, that's an infraction. He just clipped it, and if the camera hadn't been watching, no one ever would have known. And so maybe race control didn't pick it up. Maybe they're going to judge it really wasn't, that. But I mean, rules are rules. He did touch it, so it's a tough call.
Yeah, Tony Cotman as a race director, he's sort of, his primary thinking into it is he doesn't want to ruin anybody's race unnecessarily, and he kind of just clipped it. He really didn't run over that hose. I think he just kind of clipped it.
It didn't move the hose. It didn't throw it out in the pit lane or anything. So he should probably get away with it. But
I think so. Let's hope so for his sake, because he's done a great job this afternoon. And we were talking about Dan just before this full course caution period last week, having sat out that race. As we'll go back, let's have a look again at what happened here to Sebastian Bourdais. You can see there the right rear crew member there is scratching around for something there. I don't know whether they had an air gun failure. No, I'm sure
he stalled. Maybe it looks like they went to the back of the car, or they re-raising the car. Something went back to the car, whether it was a starter or the air jack, putting it back in, and he's back in the pits.
Yeah, it looks like there's a problem on the right rear of this car. Bill Stevens there is in the Newman Hans Lanigan Racing pit. Is that flat? Right rear flat?
Well, they were very disheartened down here. I just spoke to Craig Hampton. I said, what happened, Craig? He said, Sebastian stalled. And then he stopped and he said, we stalled. He didn't want to put the blame on his 3-time champion driver, but obviously they're very disheartened down here. Probably won't clinch that championship this weekend.
Good.
Well, good for everybody but Sebastian Bourdais, I guess. So yes, just like we said, just stalled the car. I mean, that's shockingly uncharacteristic of Sebastian. But I mean, you think back to races where the pressure was on for the championship. We have seen him make a few mistakes. I mean, I think back to last year's Surfers Paradise event. He won the championship in very un-Sebastian Bourdais-like style. Just riddled with mistakes that race, but now he finds himself right at the back of this queue, and it's going to make for a long afternoon.
It certainly is. He's right behind Catherine Legg there in the relatively newly liveried car of Dale Coyne Racing. Let's have a look at the point standings as they are right now. If the race was to finish right now, then Bourdais would have a 48-point lead over Will Power, who would actually move ahead of Robert Dornbos. And if that was the, look at that, Justin Wilson, so just 3 points covering those second, third, and fourth. Of course, 3 or 4 races ago, we had 3 points covering the top 3 in the championship. But now, Justin Wilson leads right back in the thick of that battle for at the very least second place in the overall standings for this year's Champ Car World Series.
And that's as they finish now. But like we've kind of been saying since the top of the show, Justin may not have the most comfortable race car in him right now, so I know he's running second at this stage. There's still 49 and a half minutes remaining in this event. a lot of stuff can still happen, so we're going to come around to green. Hopefully this time by Bruno Junqueira will lead this field.
I think there's no doubt that everybody else is going to have to make at least one more pit stop, but Bruno Junqueira, that is the question mark. Can he make it on just one more pit stop? That we will have to wait and see. We're getting ready to go back to green. The driver's already picking up the pace, going back to green at the Bavaria Grand Prix of Assen. Excellent restart once again for Bruno Junqueira. Justin Wilson in second place and Jan Halen. He thought about looking to the inside, did he?
I bet Jan Halen was absolutely cursing the fact that he couldn't use his Cosworth power to pass, as we saw Sebastian Bourdais making a move there, I guess on Catherine Legge into the first corner, but that's exactly the situation where Jan would have been all over the power to pass. Justin probably as well in defense, but neither driver allowed to do it. I can't imagine how tempting, how hard it must have been to resist that.
Yes, indeed. And it is Bruno Junqueira who leads, and from Justin Wilson, Jan Halen, Dan Clark, and look at his front rail, trying to make a move on Neil Jarni. Time to turn. Ooh, into turn 6. That's a difficult place to make a pass.
Johnny, he did move a little bit. He was not all the way to the left-hand side of the racetrack down that straightaway, and he has been called out on blocking warnings before. The only penalty actually this year having been assessed to Robert Dornbos back in Cleveland, but that, I don't know, the race control is going to have to look over that one and see if they maybe moved a little bit. I mean, that's an opportunistic move anyway, but I don't know. There might have been some movement there, some deviation from the racing line.
Bill Stevens with Dale Coyne, who's with the race-leading car of Bruno Junqueira. Car number 19, the Sonny's barbecue car, out in front. And Dale Coyne just coming off his best ever finish in the Champ Cars, second place at Zolder.
Down here with team owner Dale Coyne. One of the oldest terms in racing is let the race come to you. It happened last week. It appears to be happening now. What are your concerns right now?
I really don't. I hope it doesn't rain.
Other than that.
We pitted and we got a yellow and everybody pitted early, so everybody's going to be saving fuel now, trying to make it to the end. But we're only one lap shorter than everybody else, so we think we're in a pretty good spot. He's good at saving fuel. We proved that last week, and this is a nice spot to be in right now, so we'll just see how the rest of the day goes. He's been up front. He knows what to do when he's up there.
Suddenly, David's becoming Goliath.
Yeah, and that would be a fantastic story, wouldn't it? Dale Coyne Racing, he himself entered this series for the first time at Mid-Ohio in 1984. They've had this is the 301st race that Dale Coyne Racing has officially entered with either one or two cars. And is he potentially looking at what would be an absolutely amazing and historic first win for that Plainfield, Illinois-based team, which is a suburb of Chicago. And Dale Coyne is a band of happy campers down there. A couple of guys on that team have been literally boyhood friends of Dale Coyne, including Terry Brown, who does the air jack on car number 19. We're on board now with Justin Wilson, and he's running in second place. It's like a lot of revs there. Was he up in seventh gear? I don't know.
Yeah, that's seventh gear heading into there.
So we've got about just under an hour to go. Sorry, 45 minutes to go in Assen. Still a long way to go in this motor race. It's Bruno Junqueira who leads on a slightly different strategy to everybody else. We heard Dale Coyne Racing say that there's really only one lap's worth of fuel as the difference between Bruno and the rest of the field. And he came in on lap 28, the others came in on lap 31, but certainly 1.5 laps of those were under caution. So there certainly isn't a lot of difference in terms of the fuel load aboard these cars, and therefore how much fuel they have in order perhaps to get to the end of the race. I fancy that everybody is going to have to make one more pit stop. Generally, you can do about a half an hour or so, and you've still got, as you can see, 45 minutes to go. So unless I think there's a lot of caution, I believe that everybody is going to have to make one more pit stop, and that everybody means including Bruno Junqueira.
Yeah, but the thing is he won't have to make two now. There's been enough caution that he will be able to make it on one, but he is going to have to stop about 10 laps earlier than anyone else. So right now the team is telling Bruno, push. We need a bit of a gap because we're going to be running a little bit longer on that last stint with a bit of a heavier fuel load. So right now it's the ball's kind of been thrown in Bruno's court. He's leading this race, slightly different strategy, and all he needs to do is build up a big enough lead that when everybody cycles through their pit stops, he still finds himself out in front, and it's very possible because he's definitely got the pace.
He has got the pace, and I think it's actually only going to be a couple of laps earlier that he comes in than everybody else. Not much more than that, maybe 1 or 2 laps actually earlier than everybody else. That Bruno Junqueira will bring that car number 19, the Sonny's barbecue car, onto pit lane.
Sorry, that was my mistake. I forgot about that last round where he got that lucky yellow. So that's right.
Perfect timing for Dale Coyne. Over the years, not an awful lot has gone his way, but boy, wouldn't it be great to just it shows what you can do in this series. That team, there's no doubt about it, has the smallest budget in this entire field. They run, of course, the 2 cars for Bruno Junqueira and Catherine Legge. There's only really a half a dozen full-time employees on that team. The rest of them are guys that just fly in to help them on the race weekend. And okay, they might be only a pickup crew, but they take it just as seriously as everybody else, James.
So probably even more passionate about it because it's not a full-time job for them. They do this because they love motorsports. They love the Champ Car World Series. And that's like what you said, Jeremy, is so fantastic about this series is that a team like Dale Coyne Racing can find themselves in this position. You just don't see that in any other form of open wheel racing.
You're right. They love it, and they love Dale Coyne, and they love working with Bruno Junqueira. I mean, there's Bruno. He's been with front-running teams. He's finished second in the Champ Car World Series point standings on 3 occasions. And yet, when he was dropped by Newman Haas Lanigan Racing at the end of last year, he assessed his options. And when Bruno was offered the chance to drive the car in testing, in the first test of the season in Sebring, Bruno said, "Are you kidding? I'd love to drive your car. Yes, please." And he hopped in the car, and he was competitive right away. And very quickly, he was signed on for the entire season. And that's because Bruno loves this series just as much as everybody else do. These 750 horsepower cars are fun to drive.
I can think of things that would be slightly less fun. Yeah, I mean, this is they are serious racing machines. Like you say, 750 horsepower, just very well built car. New for this year. The aerodynamics are great. They've redesigned the car a little bit to make the racing better, and that's really helped out. Bill Stevens in the pit with Eric Bachelard, owner of this man's car right here for Conquest Racing.
And Eric Bachelard is the team owner. Jan was fastest in the morning practice. Was that an indication that you had a pretty good race set up for today?
Yeah, obviously, the car is good, and Jan is doing a very good job. A lot of passes, and right now we have to be careful with the fuel, but he's doing the right thing, so we are good with our window, so we should do another pit stop and be good to go.
That was my next question. In your opinion, he can stay out with everybody else with the amount of fuel that he has in pit when everybody comes in?
Yes, we are absolutely perfect with the fuel. He's in the window, so he's doing good.
The plan is hanging together down here.
It is an Eric Bachelard, of course, an accomplished former driver himself. The racing last week in Zolder, that was the racetrack on which Eric Bachelard turned his very first laps in a racing car over 20 years ago in Formula Ford. He raced in Formula 3 in Europe, then made his career in North America. He won the Indy Lights Championship as a driver, did Eric Bachelard, before briefly driving up into the Champ Car World Series. He raced several years at the top echelon here in North America, and then became a team owner with Conquest Racing, and he's now looking for what would be his second podium result. Best result so far for Conquest Racing, a second place finish for Andrew Ranger. That was at Monterrey in Mexico in 2005. As we watch Will Power, he's got himself now up into the top 5, and very much in the reckoning now for at least second place in this year's Champ Car World Series. And as the standings are right now, he has moved ahead of Robert Dornbos in that battle, with Justin Wilson, who's running in second place in this race, just a couple of points behind as well, James. But lots to play for, isn't there?
There certainly is, and it's just so close. Like we saw, if things finished as is, there's only 3 points separating second, third, and fourth. So even though Sebastian sort of has run away with it at the front, there's a great battle forming up. And with 2 races remaining after this one, it really can go anyone's way because all these guys are competitive.
The Champ Car World Series is now available on the new iPhone. The site showcases the latest videos from the Champ Car World Series, including previews, recaps, interviews, and short video capsules of the latest races. iPhone owners can go to www.ccws2.com/i. The site will be updated regularly with the best from the Champ Car World Series for fans to watch on the go. Again, that's www.ccws2.com/i. We've got 40 minutes remaining at the Bavaria Beer Champ Car Grand Prix, the TT circuit in Assen. There is a local hero, Robert Dornbos, running in a lowly 10th place. Certainly a very disappointing day so far for the Dutchman, with a huge crowd on hand, and they're we've seen and heard the klaxons wailing all weekend long, but Robert just hasn't been able to deliver.
And it's really been since this car rolled off the truck on Friday, so the whole team has really struggled. I mean, Dan Clark is doing a great job in this race, but I think Robert's just not had things go his way. They tried to get him a little bit off strategy at the beginning of this race, but it just not unfolded. I guess he's used up a lot of his luck already. He certainly has had a lot of things go his way in different events so far this year and pulled off some great results because of it. It's just unfortunate for him that at his hometown race, he's really not able to show truly how competitive he can be, because 10th place right now where Robert's running, that's just truly not indicative of how fast he and this team can be.
No, you're right. He's certainly, as a general rule this year, he's raced a lot better than he has qualified. His average starting position only 7.09 coming into this race. That ranks 6th overall. Sebastian Bourdais has the best qualifying average position of 3.0. He's followed by Will Power, then Justin Wilson, then Simon Pagenaud. Next, Tagliani actually, surprisingly, has the 5th best overall average qualifying position. That's because he's been very consistent in qualifying. And then Robert Doornbos 6th overall, but of course he's got the 2nd best average finishing position, which is why he's 2nd in the point standings coming into this weekend. But look there at the front of the field, it is Bruno Junqueira out in front. 1 minute 22.3 last time around. That's only 2 or 3 tenths slower than his best lap of the race, and Justin Wilson right behind him has just set a 1 minute 22.2 last time around. The quickest lap of the race has been set by Bruno Junqueira, but Jan Halen has just set the 2nd fastest lap, mere hundredths of a second slower. So Junqueira, Halen and Dan Clark, the 3 quickest cars in this race so far, James.
Yeah, they're doing a great job, and Bruno, look at this graphic here. Bruno Junqueira's lead over Justin Wilson grew a little bit, shrank a little bit on that 3rd lap, but the team's now telling Bruno he needs to push a little bit harder. Don't worry so much about saving fuel at this point. He's done enough in the first part of this stint that they've hit their numbers. Now they really want a little bit of a gap.
Yes, that's right. They do need a little bit of a gap, because he's certainly going to be coming in before those guys behind him, and he's going to be taking on a little bit more fuel than everybody else. So it will be a longer stop for Bruno Junqueira, plus the fact all the other guys behind are going to be able to do that extra 1 or maybe even 2 laps before they come onto pit lane, and they'll be able to take advantage of the fact not only will they have a light tank of fuel at that stage, but they'll have hot tyres as well. So you certainly lose ground when you have to come in and make a pit stop before the pursuing cars.
Yeah, Bruno's in-lap and out-lap before this last round of pit stops is going to be absolutely crucial, because he's going to be doing it on his own. A lot of these other drivers may end up pitting on the same lap, everyone coming in together, and they're all sort of in a train. Bruno's got a little bit of clean air, and he's going to be pitting a lap or 2 earlier, and so he's really going to have to make sure that his in-lap is stellar, and that probably even more importantly, that he gets up to speed as quickly as possible. He's going to want to get his tires warm, because you can't use tire warmers in this series, so very cold tires. It's up to the driver to get these Bridgestones up to temperature, and then he needs to be absolutely gunning it, so that way he is on the pace and in the lead when Justin and crew come out of the pits from their final stops.
Yeah, there's no room for error for Bruno Junqueira, and he's super consistent. His last couple of laps under 1 minute 22.2. This time around, a new fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 21.778. Bruno Junqueira, he's got the pedal to the metal. He is absolutely flying in this car. Also down in the 21s on that lap around, with Dan Clark in 4th place and Jan Halen in 3rd. Justin Wilson in 2nd place, a 1:22 flat. The pace is hotting up, James.
A bunch of the guys in the top 5 have just set their fastest laps of the race, and this guy right here does have the fastest lap of the race. So this is what he needs to do. This is the kind of situation where on his own he might be using his Cosworth power to pass if he were allowed, Jeremy. So not being able to use his features really kind of throwing a curveball at all these drivers in a bunch of different scenarios, and it's interesting to see how they're all coping with it. But I've got to say, Justin Wilson has really come on in this final stint. It didn't really look like he had the car at the beginning. He seemed like he was holding guys up. He didn't even have a fastest lap in the top 10, but he's really now put the hammer down. The car has come to him, the track has come to him, and now he's really on the pace.
Yes, and Phil Howard is the team manager for this organization. The Rocket Sports and Roost Sports teams still working together, but they're now running under their separate and original identities. Bill Stevens is with Phil Howard, who calls the strategy for the number 9 car of Justin Wilson, and it's Justin now in 2nd place as time ticking away. Just over 1 half hour to go.
With Phil Howard here as he's trying to get undressed. I don't know what you think I had in mind, but I'm sweating. And that's what I was going to ask you. Is this going to come down to this final pit stop and getting out of here before everyone else?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's we're looking pretty good at the moment. Justin's doing a great job. The CCW car's going great. The guys recovered from a bit of an issue this morning, and everything's going pretty good, so we're pretty happy.
Will his fuel allow him to stay out as long as he has to before that last pit stop?
Yes, it will.
Very happy.
Great job on the fuel.
All right, they say they can swing for the fences in the last part of this race.
Yeah, thanks, Bill Stevens, and this is going to be fascinating. Now, last time around, he wasn't quite so quick, was Justin, and Bruno Junqueira pulled out about 3/4 of a second. You can see how that gap has extended over the last couple of laps. Bruno has really got the hammer down. A 1:21.832 last time around, just fractions of a second slower than his best lap of the race, which was set on the previous tour around this TT circuit, Assen, and that gap from first to second now out to 2.6 seconds. Can Justin Wilson respond?
This is going to be interesting. I mean, Bruno really is doing what he needs to do now. It's so cool to watch. I have to tell you, I mean, seeing a Dale Coyne car, Bruno Junqueira just hustling that thing around. I mean, you would never see that in Formula One. You're never going to see the Spiker team out front legitimately leading a race. You know, the lowest budget team on the grid right now is out front. He's beating the Giants, and it's just such a cool thing to see. I cannot be happier for these guys, and I'm just praying, you know, my completely unbiased opinion, as I'm praying that this really goes their way.
Well, everybody loves the underdog, don't you? And Bruno, you know, he's a really likeable young man too. He works so hard at his fitness, particularly after that life-threatening injury he suffered in Indianapolis a couple of years ago. He's come back strong. Here's another guy who's got his back to the wall there. Eric Bachelard, the team owner for Conquest Racing. Jan Halen at the wheel of car number 34. The graphic print car of Jan Halen in third place. It's Bruno Junqueira who leads, and there is just about half an hour to go. So look at the pressure is on there. The gap is extended just a little bit more. 1:22.0 last lap for Bruno Junqueira. Only a tenth of a second quicker than Justin Wilson. So the second place car just about able to maintain the pace of the race leader. I fancied that by the time they made their pit stops, Bruno really probably needs, what, a 3 or 4 second margin over the rest of the field, James?
It's so tough to tell. I mean, it all depends on the length of the pit lane, you know, whether Justin does good in laps and out laps. Same thing with Bruno. It's to put a number on, and then of course the pit stop itself has to be flawless from all the crew. So, Dan Clark, he's the first guy to dive into pit lane from fourth position.
Yeah, I think we weren't really expecting him in for another 3 or 4 laps, actually. So this is an interesting call. I think they probably reckon that Dan has a very quick car. If they can get him out on a clean racetrack without being held up by anybody, maybe he can turn some super quick laps, and maybe that'll work. Bill Stevens is in the Minardi Team USA.
Dan Clark is into the pits earlier than the other cars running up front. I just spoke to Dale Coyne, by the way. He says that Bruno will be coming in 1 lap before everybody else. So he's rolling the dice as well, but so far he hasn't rolled boxcars.
No, and Dan Clark, you know, if you come in just 1 or 2 laps before everybody else, that generally works against you. If you can come in 4 or 5 laps before, then possibly with a brand new set of tires, which Dan Clark has on that car right now, maybe you can get up to speed quick enough. Of course, there's a kind of good news and bad news. A fresh set of tires is going to bring you more pace, but a heavier car is going to lose you a bit of pace. So very interesting strategy there. And as Bill Stevens was saying, I think Minardi Team USA just rolling the dice a little bit, and why not?
At this point, exactly. I mean, it did look like he was pretty quick. He was right in the back of Halen, was unable to make that pass, and they really want a podium. There'd be nothing that would make Dan happier on his comeback after a 1-race suspension to get that car up on the podium. So rolling the dice a bit, but that's sometimes what you have to do. If you saw the black sidewall Bridgestone tires going on, slightly harder compound, but more consistent over a run. So this could be exactly what Dan needs.
And there was that battle we saw there for second place between Jan Halen and Justin Wilson, and Bruno Junqueira was out ahead of them. Neil Jarney, we lost our picture here, you guys haven't at home. Neil Jarney, we just saw a brief glimpse of the Red Bull car of PKV Racing, running in 6th place. Neil Jarney, he had just set the fastest lap of the race. We've got to apologise for the lack of picture. We've got a electrical meltdown here apparently of some sort, so we'll get the picture back to you as soon as we can. But I can tell you that Graham Rahal now has set the fastest lap of the race, a 1:21.246. Neil Jarney a 1:21.5, and Bruno Junqueira also turned his best lap of the race, a 1:21.6, and that gap between first and second now over 3 seconds. I apologise for that brief loss of pictures. We believe you are now back with us. We certainly hope so. There is a picture there. That is a battle for second place. Justin Wilson in the CDW car, the red and white car, number 9 of the Rousport team, just ahead of Jan Halen. That battle for second and third, and Bruno Junqueira about 3 seconds down the road, and farther back, all sorts of battles developing.
And you know what? I've just been kind of doing the math on this, and that's a questionable stop from Team Menard USA with Dan Clark. It's going to be very close for him to make it to the end here, but it's Bruno Junqueira leading from Justin Wilson, half an hour to go at Assen.
So all sorts of strategy developing. Welcome to this race. We're delighted you could join us. Jeremy Shaw with James Hinchcliffe and Bill Stevens. There was a flash of our race leader, Bruno Junqueira. That gap from first and second, now 3.5 seconds over Justin Wilson and Jan Halen, battling for second place. All sorts of strategies playing out. And Dan Clark, we'll have to see what his lap time is as he comes across the line. His first flying lap after making that pit stop, as Jan Halen looks briefly there to the inside, not close enough to make a move in turn 5. Dan Clark, after making that out of sequence pit stop with everybody else, coming in, we believe, at least 3 or 4 laps before everybody else. As we look at the race summary there, 3 full course cautions, just 1 car out of the race as Alex Tagliani makes his final pit stop of the day. And Dan Clark's first flying lap, James Hinchcliffe, was a 1:22.6. Pretty good first lap out of the pit.
That's certainly not bad at all as Alex Tagliani peels out. He's got the red sidewall tires. He's gone for the option tires. That's a softer compound. Now Bridgestone brings 2 different compounds to each race. The red sidewall, a slightly softer compound, a little bit quicker, a little bit less consistent. It falls off more over the course of a race. The black sidewall, slightly harder compound, a little bit more consistent over the length of a stint. So Alex going for the softer one, trying to get a little bit of that speed right instantly when he gets out of the pits to try and leapfrog the guys who are right in front of him on track.
And did you see Bruno using every inch of the road, that flat out in 7th gear, turn 15 before that final chicane. That time around, a new best lap for Bruno Junqueira, 1:21.4. Graham Rahal, we believe, has got a flat tyre. He is bringing that car in out of sequence, was running in 7th place. If you look at that, I think he's actually just come past the pit lane one more time, but Bruno is doing a fantastic job. The gap from first to second, 3.7 seconds now, as we see the second of the Minardi team. Okay, this is Robert Dornbos in for his final pit stop of the day.
Absolutely fuel to the brim, make sure he can make it. Tires peeling out. He is on the black sidewalls, the primary tires. One of the Pacific Coast cars in the background. I think it's Alex Figge, who is making a pit stop as well. Robert creeping, just waiting to get off that pit lane speed limiter. Here's our leader, Bruno Junqueira. We're getting word he might be pitting this lap, so this could be crucial time for Bruno. He is heading through the turn 10-11 section now. He's going to be heading onto that quick back straightaway, and it's all about this in lap. How clean and quick these Dale Coyne Racing guys get that pit stop done, and then how quickly he can get back up to speed.
Indeed, he's done 20 laps on this tank of fuel, and there he peels off onto the pit lane. There's a 2-stage pit limiter here, this long pit lane at TT Circuit Assen, down to 75 miles an hour initially, the first push of the button on the steering wheel, then here, down to 40 miles an hour. You just creep along this pit lane. It feels oh so slow. Bill Stevens is in the Dale Coyne Racing pit as Bruno Junqueira prepares for this final pit stop of the day for him.
I spoke to Bruno this morning. He was very pleased with the mileage. A lot of the teams are saying 1.75 was their bogey. Bruno said he was getting closer to 1.8 and maintaining his pace. It looks like a clean pit stop. Tires are on. Fuel is in. And he's out.
That looked like an excellent stop for Dale Coyne Racing. Those guys really stepping up to the plate. Remarkable effort there. It's Arturo Morimoto, who's the crew chief for car number 19, Bruno Junqueira, and Dale Coyne Racing, the Sonny's barbecue car. He's led this race absolutely magnificently. Yeah, his strategy has worked out in his favour perhaps, but so Bruno has been driving magnificently, turning a string of quick laps, and he made that pit stop in the lead. And now over the next couple of laps, we're going to see all the other race leaders make their final pit stops of the day as well. And Bruno and Justin Wilson here, he's looking, stretching that lead over Jan Halen, James.
He is not making this any easier for Bruno Junqueira because he's just done his personal best, a 21.6 on that last lap. He's coming through into the final chicane now. We'll see what this lap is, but really when he needs to push as well, Justin is doing his best, so he's not making this easy, not making any mistakes. Bruno Junqueira is really going to have to work for this across across the line this time. Another personal best for him, a 21.4, 0.2 of a second better than his personal best. So Justin Wilson, he's really earning his pay now. He's doing what he needs to do to try and get that lead from Bruno Junqueira.
As is Jan Heylen right behind the CDW car, the Graphic Print car, number 34. Jan Heylen, we're looking back over the wing of Justin Wilson's car. There is Jan Heylen right there. He's just turned an almost identical lap to our race leader, Justin Wilson. 1 minute 21.450 for Wilson, 1 minute 21.465 for Heylen. The fastest lap has now been set by Tristan Gomondy, running in third place at 1 minute 21.070 on this last lap. And you can see the gap. Can you just see Gomondy in the background there? Perhaps no, not quite. But he's about 3 seconds behind Jan Heylen as we see that gap from first to second. Boy, this is getting exciting. 25 minutes to go, no doubt. But everybody now can get to the end of this race on what will be this final pit stop of the day, including Dan Clark, who's come out in the in 11th place after being the first of the guys to make their final pit stop of the day.
And you know, with such a fast physical...
I fancy he'll be in this time around, don't you?
You might just be right. We're going to see here, and he does. Both those cars, your leaders, have now dived into pit lane, and this is when it all counts. I mean, we've been driving for an hour and 20 minutes, and these guys have been driving like it's qualifying. This is such a tough part of the race, and both these guys have done such a great job. We think that Bill Stevens is going to be in the CDW pit to call a stop for Justin Wilson. He pulls in, he's looking for his guy here, and he pulls in, hit the marks, keep it clean.
Like a track meet down here as they get all 4 tires off of the car, the new one's on. Fuel still going in. That is just a momentary pause, but that's a good pit stop and puts him out ahead of Jan Heylen.
Thank you, Bill Stevens. There is the gap from first to second. As you can see, they come out of the pits, and Justin maybe made just a little bit of ground there over Jan Heylen. Let's watch and see. There's Graham Rahal on the pit lane. We want to see where these guys come out in relation to Bruno Junqueira. I fancy they might be ahead of it.
They beat him out. I think they beat him out. When Bruno exited pit lane, he was right behind his teammate Catherine Legg.
There's Gomondy in third.
Gomondy, where has Bruno ended up? I would have thought he'd be somewhere in this picture, whether it was just in front or just behind. I didn't think the gap would be that big either way. Pagenaud's leading at this point. It's so tough to tell. I feel like Junqueira might not have been able to do it. He didn't have a particularly good outlap. In fact, he had 2 not that great outlaps, and with coming out in clear air, Justin Wilson and Jan Heylen are going to be able to put those laps down. I think it may have all just come unraveled for Bruno Junqueira.
Possibly a 1 minute 23.5, the outlap for Bruno Junqueira. That was compared to Dan Clark's 1:22.4. We believe that Junqueira got out ahead of Dan Clark, and Dan was running right up towards the front before he came in as the first of the leaders to make a pit stop. But here we are on board with Justin Wilson, and we believe that he has taken the lead of this race. I don't know, has he? I'm not quite sure. But here's the rest of the guys. They made it one more. No, he hasn't come past yet. There is the championship leader, Sebastian Bourdais, into the Newman-Haas-Lanigan pit for the final time here at Assen, at least he hopes. The red tires coming off, the slightly harder, regular tires there on the Bridgeport Pretenders going on to that car. The final splashes of fuel. He's beaten out of the pits by Simon Pagenaud, and now it's a dash to the finish. We're waiting for the guys to come around and complete this lap, and the scoring hasn't yet updated. Where are these guys?
It looks like Justin Wilson has inherited the lead. Jan Heylen second, Bruno Junqueira third in front of Tristan Gomondy. So it has not quite worked out for Bruno Junqueira, but now this man, Justin Wilson, who's been struggling on dry pace all weekend long, finds himself comfortably in the lead of this race with just over 21 minutes to go.
And they made a raft of changes to this car after Justin really struggled in final qualifying yesterday, but they weren't able to assess what happened because they had a gearbox oil leak in the warm-up this morning. So Justin Wilson came into this race blind. He's now leading. Leading comfortably, the CDW car number 9, the Rousport machine of Justin Wilson. The Englishman, the lanky Englishman, 6'4" he is. He's squeezed to get him into these cars, but he's doing a masterful job. There is the second place car, the Conquest Racing machine of Jan Heylen, and he just saw a flash of the Sonny's barbecue car of Dale Coyne Racing and Bruno Junqueira in third place now. So the fact that these guys were able to do it 2 extra laps at hot pace, hot tires, low fuel, that was the difference between themselves running behind Bruno Junqueira and leapfrogging him, which is what they have done during that final round of the pit stops. And now with just over 20 minutes to go in this fascinating Bavaria Beer Grand Prix, Champ Car Grand Prix of Holland, it is Justin Wilson who leads over Jan Halen, and then in third place is Bruno Junqueira, then Tristan Gormandi. Dan Clark finds himself in fifth despite making that very early final pit stop. Neil Jarni in sixth, then Simon Pagenaud. Sebastian Bourdais, he's got himself back up into eighth place. It's a pretty good effort. Then of Serbia, Ray Hall Diel, then Robert Dornbos way back down in 12th place. I don't know what happened to him. It may be in this final pit stop or just after, whether he had some sort of a problem, we do not know. Dornbos is in 12th. The good news for him is he's ahead of Will Powers all the way down in 13th.
Not quite sure how that all transpired, but there's some great action transpiring on the racetrack with Neil Jarni right on the gearbox of Dan Clark. I mean, they're fighting for fifth and sixth positions right now. Dan Clark losing one spot to Tristan Gormandi in that pit stop exchange, but now it's Neil Jarni right on his tail. He wants that position, and now with no Cosworth power to pass to use, he's going to have to do this one solely on brawn and skill.
Well, you're right. You say there's no more Cosworth power to pass to use. In fact, Race Control just sent out a message to all the teams: do not use P2P. We've noted that everybody using P2P in recent laps, says the instant message from Race Control, from the race director Tony Cotman. That goes to all the teams along pit lane, and he says there will be consequences if you use the Cosworth power to pass. Now, that's going to be interesting to see how that one is policed in the closing stages, but you can see there's a lot to play for, and it's Justin Wilson who leads by not very much from that white and green car of Jan Halen in second place.
But what's interesting to note now is Bruno Junqueira in third place is some 7 seconds now behind the leader, running slightly slower lap times, but ultimately that's the amount of gap. Let's say about 6 seconds is what he came out behind from having to pit just that one lap earlier. So it's 2 laps earlier, sorry. You could see that slightly longer pit stop for fuel, and maybe not the greatest out lap by him. I mean, I don't know if he was held up by her, but he certainly came up behind out behind his teammate Catherine Legg. I'm not sure if she let him by, he was able to put those laps down, but like we saw, his out lap was not particularly stunning, was it?
No, it wasn't. I didn't see which tyres he was on. If he's on the red sidewall tyres, sometimes you have to be a little bit careful with those in the first couple of laps. You don't want to overuse those tyres early part of the stint. We're on board with Justin Wilson. He is on the black sidewall tyres, the harder of the two cars, the standard tyre from Bridgestone. Running out in the lead, but Jan Halen is pushing so hard in second place, and these two absolutely trading lap times at the front of the field.
Yeah, they are. I mean, the last lap was a 121.918 for Justin Wilson, a 121.962, just half a tenth of a second, 51 thousandths of a second is what separated these two guys on that last lap. So they're both pushing to the maximum and pushing each other. No one can afford to make a mistake or let up, even in the slightest.
They certainly can't. And Justin Wilson, he's certainly for him a disappointing season in that car number 9. His last victory came in Edmonton in 2006. That was 17 races ago. As we look here at the battle now that is developing for third place between Bruno Junqueira and Tristan Gormandi. Bruno Junqueira, of course, he came off a magnificent second place finish 1 week ago at Circuit Zolder in Belgium, and now Tristan Gormandi, who's had a sequence of very disappointing results since injuring himself in a couple of actions.
Right now, Dale Coyne is in a huddle with his team. They have not figured out themselves what happened with Bruno after that pit stop. I tried to get in to get a word. He said, just give me a minute. They are noodling out the numbers here to try to get an answer themselves. As soon as I can get a word with them, I will and let you know. But like all of us here, we're wondering.
And we hear a note potentially that several drivers have been using their Cosworth power to pass in violation of what the teams have been told by Race Control. And we hear that people that might be perhaps investigated are Simon Pagenaud, Neil Jarni, Dan Clark, and the third place car of Bruno Junqueira.
Yeah, he really has struggled to get up to pace. I mean, the last lap, I guess not the most recent one, the one before that was some 9/10 of a second slower than Tristan Gormandi, and even this last one was 6/10 of a second slower. So Junkie really struggling at this point. But just kind of going back to what Bill was saying, just from watching the two pit stops, Bruno Junqueira's and Justin Wilson's, it looked like the fuel hose was on Bruno's car for so much longer than it would take to get an extra 2 laps of fuel in. So whether there was a problem initially getting it in, or whether they left it on a little bit longer than they had to, just to make sure they had that tank full. But that certainly, from what I was watching, it just physically looked like it was on the car longer.
Yeah, it certainly seemed like it, didn't it? And unfortunately, we don't have a timer on those pit stops. And to be honest, I just don't have time to click a stopwatch here.
Dale Coyne, you're still shaking your head. Things have changed so much. What can you tell us?
No, we were P1 and we had them open a gap just for security, and we had, for some reason, we lost 8 seconds in the pit stop. It wasn't when there's no trauma here. So unless they had a problem on an outlap, I'm not sure what it is. He's going a little slower now, so maybe he's got an issue with the car, but we're still 3, so we'll see what happens.
Man, double whammy for Dale Coyne.
Yeah, but for Dale to be disappointed with a third place finish really does show how far this team has progressed this season. And Junkie, he's qualified among the top 10 in each of the last 5 races, qualified and finished among the top 10 in each of the last 5 races. 8 in all this season out of the 11 races we've had so far, so it's certainly been a great season for Dale Coyne Racing in general, by comparison to their previous years, certainly. And a third place finish, certainly following on from that second place 1 week ago in Zola, would be another excellent result. The 2 fastest guys on that lap were Simon Pagenaud, Graham Rahal actually the best lap that time around, 1 minute 21.7. Graham running in 10th place. Race leader Justin Wilson turned a 1 minute 21.9. Jan Halen, there is Justin Wilson in the CCWS car, the race leader. The gap from first to second now is 2.0 seconds over Jan Halen. Gap just stretched out just fractionally over the last couple of laps, just 1/10 of a second a lap, as you can see. 2.01 seconds as they came across the line last time around.
That is just so incredibly fast to that section. Justin did not lift even slightly, did not even breathe on that throttle. 7th gear, flat out 175 miles an hour. I mean, it looks so harmless and so easy on television. You cannot do it justice how difficult that is.
Yeah, the G-forces, and no wonder the drivers are having so much fun on this racetrack.
This is one of the classic road course circuits. I mean, it looks like one of the neatest tracks I've ever seen.
It's built for motorcycles. They've been racing here in Assen since 1925. Initially on a road course that was almost 18 miles around. Went through the towns and villages in this northeastern part of the Netherlands, but it's been changed several times over the years. They built a permanent facility here at Assen for the first time in 1955. Many adjustments over the years, and the last major reconfiguration of this track was just last year in preparation for the debut here of the Champ Car World Series. A big changes to the track, shortened to 2.73 miles, and it's certainly been a great venue. The drivers are loving it, and the fans are loving it too. And look at this, Dan Clark in 4th place, 5th place now, isn't he? This is the battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
This morning at length, and he really has taken this past week to rethink a lot of things. But one thing that he hasn't done is he hasn't changed his opinion of his driving style. He says that he's going to continue doing what he's always done. But if there's one thing that maybe he changed this weekend, he said he was giving other drivers more space. He did not want an incident because he felt if anything happened involving him, he would get the blame for it.
I think you're dead right there, and certainly I think last weekend was a bit of an eye-opener for Dan Clark. He was told to sit out the weekend. He spent some of the race in race control, watching how the race develops with Tony Cotton. I think he learned a lot from that, and then he went back down to the pit lane. He was actually operating the lollipop board there for the Minardi Team USA.
Yeah, but I mean, shouldn't you always give drivers enough room to avoid incident? Because I mean, that's just ridiculous. But either way, whatever's happened to him, it's been great, because that last lap, Dan Clark was the fastest man on the track. He's caught this train. This is the battle for that final podium position, and I can tell you all 3 of those men would absolutely love to get on it. But not only would any of those guys like to be on it, we still have to say that Jan Halen is on track for his first ever podium in the Champ Car World Series. He's comfortably in 2nd place, some 9 seconds ahead of 3rd, with just under 12 minutes remaining. So he's absolutely on track for a great result.
It would be, in fact, the equal, the best ever result for Conquest Racing. That came, as we said earlier on, 2nd place for Andrew Ranger in Monterrey, Mexico in 2005. 11.5 minutes to go in the Bavaria Beer Champ Car Grand Prix, the 12th round of this year's Champ Car World Series, and the second and final event in the Fanos European Team Cup. As the race ended now, we can see the point standings. Justin Wilson would vault his way all the way up into 2nd place in the standings over Robert Dornbos and Will Power. And Will Power is now running a lowly 13th place. We don't know what happened to Will Power, but he was running in the top 5 or 6 earlier on, and all of a sudden, after this last round of pit stops, he's gone to the back. Whether he had a problem in the pits or whether he had a problem out on the racetrack, we do not know. Apologies for that. But the upshot is that Will Power is not in contention for Team Australia in this race. The other Team Australia car, however, is Simon Pagenaud, and here he is holding off his countryman and mentor, Sebastian Bourdais.
And that is an interesting little battle here. I mean, Sebastian Bourdais really has helped Simon up through his career, and last year, of course, Simon was running in the Champ Car Atlantic Championship. He won that championship and a $2 million prize that went along with it to move him up into Champ Car. And it's very interesting for Sebastian now to be racing against one of the guys that he's really helped develop and mentor up through his career. And it's definitely it's a situation they both enjoy because they're both very, very good friends off the track, but then, of course, bitter rivals on it.
Yeah, there's certainly Simon Pagenaud is going to give nothing to Sebastian Bourdais. Yes, he's grateful for the opportunity that Sebastian Bourdais opened up for him in introducing him to many people over in North America. But Simon Pagenaud, he's his own man. He's driving his own team. Well, not his own team, but a very different team, of course, with Team Australia and Derek Walker. And he would love nothing better now than to hold off Sebastian Bourdais in that battle for 7th and 8th in the closing stages. Sebastian Bourdais, he had that problem in that final pit stop, and he rejoined at the back of the pack. He's done very well to move his way up into 8th place from, 15th or 16th, I think he was, after that error in the pit lane. But now he's charging up. He's caught up with Neil Jarney and Simon Pagenaud. But unless something very dramatic happens, I fancy that is where he might have to settle for a finish. And with a 56-point or thereabouts margin over second place going into the Lexmark Grand Prix in Surfers Paradise, Australia. That'll be on Sunday, October the 21st. It'll still be all to play for in the championship. No doubt Bourdais very much has the upper hand with just 2 races now to go following the cancellation this week of what was scheduled as a final event of the season in Phoenix. Now just 2 races to go, and Bourdais very much has the upper hand in the championship battle, but it is not over yet. So time is still sticking away. Still ticking away. There is 8 minutes and 40 seconds and counting now in the battle here for 6th and 7th. In the meantime, Justin Rawson has put the hammer down. He's turned a series of very quick laps, and he's pulled away now from Jan Heylen. The gap between 1st and 2nd now out to 6 seconds. That's why we're not watching that battle, because it really isn't a battle. This is the closest battle on the track right now, and it's for 6th, 7th and 8th. Neil Jarney, Simon Pagenaud and Sebastian Bourdais.
Interesting battle here developing, and it's interesting because just a few laps ago we saw that Neil Jarney was actually right up on the back of Dan Clark challenging him, but he really seems to have fallen off. And what I'm beginning to think is that all the drivers who are on the red sidewall Bridgestone tires are starting to suffer a little bit of drop in performance. We've seen Sebastian Bourdais on the black really caught up to Simon Pagenaud, who's on the reds. Neil Jarney, who was right on the back of Dan Clark early in the stint, has now started to fall back a little bit. So it looks like these red sidewall tires, the softer compound, a little bit quicker initially, just deteriorates a little bit more and the pace falls off over the course of a stint, and they're really struggling to keep pace with the black sidewall tires as they head through the banked corner 8. Very, very fun corner. One of the favorites of the drivers on this track.
Yeah, there's a couple of banked corners on this race. Like turn 1 and turn 8, very, very quick. And as you say, James Hinchcliffe, the drivers really are loving the challenge of driving this racetrack. And here, coming through turns 10 and 11, a flat-out increasing radius right-hander there. Then these couple of kicks taken absolutely flat out, leading towards the final chicane. So we'll look again at the final pit stop of Sebastian Bourdais as we see Graham Rahal, his Newman Haas-Lanigan teammate, coming out behind him, just actually almost making contact there. I think that was with Will Power, actually. Maybe that is why Will Power had a problem in that final stop. I don't know. He's dropped from a relatively front-running position way back in the pack. And Sebastian Bourdais stalled that car. It took him several seconds to get that starter motor in place. Rather longer, perhaps, than we might have anticipated.
I think that was a second last stop, so if I remember correctly. But yeah, I mean, normally I think there's usually a crew guy who grabs the starter and has it on hand. But I guess with a guy like Sebastian Bourdais, they might not think he'll ever need it. But it just proves that he's only human and he's capable of making mistakes just like anyone else. Luckily for him, this was not really a make or break race in terms of the championship. This was it might come off in his way, but there's still 2 rounds to go. He still has a very comfortable lead as Robert Doornbos has not really done much to fight back, actually running 4 places behind Sebastian Bourdais at this point. But it's your leader, Justin Wilson, who's going to be the big winner in terms of the championship position if this race were to end as they are running with 6 minutes to go.
And boy, it's about time a bit of luck went Justin Wilson's way. He seems to have had absolutely none on his side this season. All sorts of things gone against him, including in the warm-up this morning when a split gearbox oil line meant that he had to miss the entire session. Here's Dan Clark onto pit lane, so maybe those guys miscalculated on the fuel. He was the first of the guys to make their final pit stop of the day. We didn't believe there was a problem at that stage, but now here is Dan Clark. It looks like fuel only.
Yeah, when you made the stop, I did question the timing there. It just seemed like it was a little bit optimistic, and maybe they were hoping for one more caution period. Obviously did not come, so with 5 minutes to go, Dan Clark had to dive back into pit lane for the last splash of fuel, and that that really
ruins his race, is what you're trying to say.
Basically, yeah. I mean,
the good news
he's
is
done such a good job this race. That's why it's really, got to be disheartening. It's not like he was running 12th and the strategy just didn't play off. He really was up there contending for a top 5. So very, very unfortunate for that team.
Yeah, I think it'll give him a real morale boost. I think just the fact that he was running so strong, he was able to put pressure on these guys, make a couple of passes, and turn some very competitive laps as well with Dan Clark at various stages of the race. But look at these battles here, developing down here towards the bottom end of the top 10. It's Justin Wilson to lead by 6.5 seconds over Jan Halen. Bruno Junqueira in third, about 5 seconds behind Halen, and actually gaining ground quite rapidly, about half a second a lap. Junkie is pulling into the advantage that Jan Halen has, and behind Junqueira is Gomondi, and then they get back to this battle here with Neil Jarni struggling now to hold off Simon Pagenaud and Sebastian Bourdais. And Jarni, he's dropping back a little bit in the later stages as well. He too on the red sidewall tyres. Glimpse of the grandsons there. There's over 100,000 seats here at TC Turkey at Assen. A big crowd on hand, and they are absolutely enjoying what has been a fascinating motor race. Here's Neil Jarni in the Red Bull car of PKV Racing. He and his PKV Racing teammate Tristan Gomondi decided on the second row of the grid, and third and fourth positions, and now running fourth and fifth.
Still very respectable, obviously. I mean, that's a very good result for them. They've been quick all weekend. That qualifying pace was by no means a fluke. Every session they've really been up there, so it's great to see. I mean, hopefully we can see in the final 2 races them kind of continue this recent form as we see things getting very racy back here. Sebastian Bourdais, obviously he'd like to try and make up as many points on Robert as possible, but at the same time, it is not worth going out at this stage in the championship with the kind of lead that he has.
This battle, it really is building up, isn't it? It's a battle for 5th, 6th and 7th. Neil Jarni just ahead of Simon Pagenaud, and Pagenaud now really coming under increasing pressure from Sebastian Bourdais. It's Tristan Gomondi who's ahead of these guys, who has still set the fastest lap of the race at 1:21.070. Last time around, let's see what laps anybody was doing. Gomondi actually the quickest man on track at a 21.3. Boy, that's a good effort. And he's closing in on Bruno Junqueira as a battle potentially for third and fourth. And these guys, Neil Jarni, turned at 1:23.7, so 2.5 seconds slower was Neil Jarni than his PKV Racing teammate Tristan Gomondi.
And it really is showing. I mean, he is holding up the cars behind him, and you can see now behind Bourdais as he maybe tries an outside line around Simon Pagenaud. He's just getting creative at this point, but you're seeing the train of Sergio Rahal catching up as well, and even Ryan Dial running now in the 10th position, not that far behind. So Neil Jarni is definitely holding up this queue of cars a little bit.
He's made the pass, look at that, but...
that's a tough place to try and make it. They're holding side by side through turn 7. That's a flat-out corner. That was a very optimistic move from Sebastian Bourdais. It was not pulled off, and now he's under attack from Oriol Servia.
Great racing here, and there is Graham Rahal at the back of this pack as well. You just mentioned Ryan Dial. Hats off to him for Pacific Coast Motorsports. He's done an excellent job this afternoon, has Ryan Dial. He's coming back, of course, from a broken collarbone suffered in a bicycle accident a few weeks ago. Here's a replay of that pass. Smokes down the inside. We've said all day long it's not really a pass the opportunity. But look at Bourdais there, hangs up around the outside line and repasses Bourdais. Great wheel-to-wheel racing.
See, this is, at the same time, it's one of the things that I envy about Bourdais. It's one of the things that just confuses me to no end about him. There's 2 minutes left in this race. He's leading the championship by a mile. His main contender is behind him. what's the point in taking a risk like that?
Well, there's nothing to lose, is there? He knows he's got the championship pretty much in the bag. If he can make up a couple of positions, he could clinch it all without even going to the last couple of races of the season. I'm sure that's the way he is thinking. But look at this this battle now, and it's Alex Tagliani there staying out of the way. He's shown one lap down, I think, is Alex Tagliani, way out of the reckoning in 15th place, and Tag doing a good job there to stay out of the way. But it's this man, it's Justin Wilson, and we're inside the final minute of this race. And I think there'll be one more lap to go when he crosses the start-finish line this time around, as he comes through these kinks on the straight towards the final chicane through turns 14 and left-handed there again, 15 here, down to this final chicane, hard on the brakes, down to third gear for Justin Wilson, through this right, left, right chicane onto the start-finish line, and I'm very sure he will get the signal. One lap to go for Justin Wilson. The gap from first to second come down quite a bit. It's only 4.8 seconds, or 5.2 as it comes across the line this time around. There is the brain trust at the CDW car, the Roesport machine of Justin Wilson, and Jan Heylen in second place by about 5 seconds. A similar gap back to Bruno Junqueira in third, who has Tristan Gomandy breathing down his neck, and then that big gap now back to Neil Jarni, Simon Pagenaud, Sebastian Bourdais, and Oriol Serviu is just at the fourth fastest lap of the race for the Forsyth Championship Racing Team. There is our second place car of Jan Heylen, and there behind him is the battle for third. So I think it looks like Jan Heylen perhaps can equal the best ever result for the Conquest Racing Team. And now Justin Wilson, he's looking to score what would be the fourth win of his career and the first since Edmonton 1 year ago. And there behind them in third place, another of the little guys for Dale Coyne Racing is Bruno Junqueira and Tristan Gomandy. He's done a great job, the Frenchman, for PKV Racing this weekend. But here comes Justin Wilson. He's been exemplary today. He took the lead at the start, a brilliant getaway, got himself ahead of the pole sitter Sebastian Bourdais, and he hasn't looked back. Just a couple of corners to go now, this final chicane for Justin Wilson. The Englishman, he's done an absolutely marvellous job for PKV Racing. There is the checkered flag for Justin Wilson, and a great result for the Englishman.
Roesport Racing.
What did I say?
PKV, but that's okay. PKV Racing did still have a phenomenal day, but this has got to be one of the most unlikely, and I guess this will be one of the happiest podiums, Jeremy, you ever see.
Boy.
Justin Wilson, his fourth ever win. Jan Heylen, his first ever podium. And Bruno Junqueira, the first ever consecutive podiums for Dale Coyne Racing. A second last week in Zolder, and a third this weekend here in Assen, as Justin Wilson doing the donuts very, very well, I might add.
He's always good at the donuts, is Justin Wilson.
Bourdais had a lot of practice with this new car, and he has not had them anywhere near as good as that. So Justin gets his first win of the season. Great for Roesport, great for CDW.
And a magnificent race here at the TT Circuit Assen. Boy, what a day. This will be a relief as much as anything else for Justin Wilson. Just seems all sorts of little gremlins have struck this team. They started off poorly in the first race of the season in Las Vegas. Then they came on strong. They were very consistently quick through the sort of, the second part of the middle half of the season, or the first part of the middle half of the season, I should say. And then the last couple of races, they seem to have lost their way a bit. But Justin Wilson, he was fastest on Friday, taking advantage of those very difficult conditions. And he and his race engineer, Mike Talbot, who came, of course, over from Newman Haas Racing, where he'd been the last few years. He'd made many changes to the car. They weren't sure how they were going to pay off, but clearly they have done for Justin Wilson. And here he is, it'll be donuts again. There's a huge crowd on hand here. Justin Wilson is going to give them their money's worth. And we've seen him before. His donuts really are magnificent there. Look at, you just see the banking of the track there in turn 8. It'll take him a long while to get around to celebrate this victory with his team. Right now, he's content to celebrate it with the fans.
I think he's celebrating with the fans. He's happy for himself. I mean, he's having a blast. I mean, why not, right? He is ever so good at those donuts, but I'll tell you, those rear Bridgestone tires are not liking Justin Wilson right now. He's absolutely punishing them.
Yes, look at the unofficial standings. Then Justin Wilson wins from Jan Heylen for the Conquest Racing Team. For Dale Coyne Racing, it's Bruno Junqueira in third place. For PKV Racing, it's Tristan Gomandy and Neil Jarni in fourth and fifth places. Then for Team Australia, Simon Pagenaud in the Aussie Vineyards car. Sebastian Bourdais has to be content with a seventh place finish, just ahead of Oriol Serviu, who came on strong in the later stages for Forsyth Championship Racing. Then Graham Rahal and Ryan Diel, an excellent top 10 finish for Pacific Coast Motorsports. points. It really has been a day for the underdogs, hasn't it?
It really has. I mean, I like how you touched on Ryan Deal there. He's really just had a clean race, got himself into their top 10, just been fantastic. But this man we're looking here, just beyond these unofficial results, Jan Halen climbing out of his car, he's just got to be over the moon. You know, just such a good result for him after what was not necessarily a perfect weekend at his home race last weekend. He's just, he's done a really good job.
Listen to the crowd. Fantastic. That's what it's all about. That is racing in Europe. And the crowd here, they've been magnificent. We can look at these donuts. Absolutely inch perfect for JW. Brilliant performance on the track. And during the race, and now afterwards, an jubilation for Jan Halen, comes home in second place. It's Justin Wilson. Last year, he won the Greg Moore Legacy Award, carrying on the legacy that Greg Moore left in the sport, and he was tragically killed 7 or 8 years ago at California Speedway. And Justin Wilson is a great ambassador for his country and for the sport, and he's come away with a magnificent win this afternoon. It's been over a year since he's been in victory lane, and it's well deserved for the 6'4" Englishman. It's the 52nd start of his career, and this will be his 16th podium finish, and it's been an excellent run by Justin Wilson. Bill Stevens is with him.
Justin Wilson emerges from the car, waves the checkered flag, and gets a tremendous ovation from this crowd here at Assen. Justin, big hug for the crew. Justin, the day began with question. You had a problem with the car, but your crew really came through for you today, didn't they?
Yeah, they did a fantastic job, and the car was working great. So that first 2 stints, we're just trying to pace ourselves, keep everything in order, and after that, it was flat out for the last part of the race, and you know, we had the pace for one, so it feels good. You know, after this morning, we were struggling with, couldn't get the warm-up done, so it's just great to get the CDW number 9 car on the top 10 of the podium.
Nice job, Justin.
Thanks.
Yeah, certainly a tremendous job, and he did have the pace. He's been quick all day, has Justin Wilson. Talking of quick, the fastest lap of the race was set by Dan Clark in the closing stages after that final splash and go pit stop. So he lost to Dan Clark, who will get a championship point. So look at the championship standings, 58 points now, the lead that Sebastian Bourdais has over Justin Wilson. So pretty much just by starting the race at the Lexmark Grand Prix at Surfers Paradise in a few weeks' time, Bourdais will clinch his 4th title, but he won't be able to do it until then. Robert Dornbos is now out of the reckoning for the championship, and Bill Stevens.
Down here with a very happy Bruno Junqueira, and for the 2nd week in a row, we're meeting on the podium. What a great turnaround for your team, Bruno.
Yeah, very happy. I think it's really good, 2 podiums in a row. A little bit like that because we lost the lead on the last pit stop. We had a problem with the PLC that engaged the 40 miles where I was 75, so I lost like at least 2 or 3 seconds coming to the pits. So we lost the lead there. But anyway, I'm very happy for the whole Dale Coyne team to get to the podium.
Nice job, Bruno.
And then Stefan Dwornik there congratulating Bruno. He's one of the race engineers here, and Bruno's sister Gianna and Terry Brown there as well with the glasses. Just a great bunch of guys here at Dale Coyne Racing. They love their motor racing, and they work hard at it as well. And Bruno Junqueira delivered with another brilliant performance this weekend, and he comes away with a 3rd place finish. 2nd place, meanwhile, for Jan Halen, and he is standing by with Bill Stevens. A great run by the Belgian driver, and he comes away. Oh, actually, he's been. Well, it was a magnificent performance by Jan Halen, and he equals the best ever result for Conquest Racing, the team owner Eric Bachelard, and they've been a lot to be proud of this afternoon, haven't they, Conquest Racing?
They certainly have, but so did Newman Haas Lanigan. Despite not having the best race, it appears that they did clinch the Fanos Resorts trophy, and we're going to get Bill Stevens now down with Sebastian Bourdais.
Sebastian Bourdais, a disappointing day. First, let's talk about the stall that may have cost you the race.
Well, it started before that, really, because we should have been in the lead, you know, if not for the PLC to just come off because of the overtake. So there was obviously there's some sort of bug in the software, and we were one of the first ones to suffer from it. And then after that, I was a little just, you know, upset and not really into it, and I made a stupid mistake. I just didn't get the revs up and stalled on cold tires. So, you know, not a very good day for Newman Haas Lanigan Racing, but we got the cup, and we got some points on the lead, so it's not that bad.
Some consolation for the 3-time champ.
So Sebastian Bourdais has to be content with a 7th place finish, but certainly a very handy championship margin going into the final 2 races of the season. October 21st at Surfers Paradise next time around. The unofficial results of the Fanos Resorts European Team Cup. Newman Haas Lanigan Racing is another piece of silverware for the Newman Haas Lanigan team. They'll be able to spend a week at the Fanos Resorts of their choice, winning over Team Australia. And Jan Halen is now with Bill Stevens.
With Jan Halen, I know you were so disappointed last week with your 13th place finish, but this week has got to make more of it here. What a day!
No, man, I can't even describe it. This is awesome. You know, after all the bad luck and the bad luck in Zolder and the bad start of the season, this is just fantastic for the team, everybody. I'm so happy. All the sponsors. Big thanks, and I hope we can keep it up from here.
Proud day for this young man.
Yeah, it was a brilliant performance there by Jan Halen, former winner of the British Formula Ford Festival, and yet another graduate of Formula Ford. Over the years, there's been just a remarkable category proving ground. Over 40 years, it's celebrating this weekend. But Justin Wilson, he was the man for this car, the car number 9, the Rue Sport team. And James, it's been a fabulous motor race.
It really has, and I think Justin Wilson learned a lot this race about controlling the pace at the beginning and really having it in the last stint. He's done a fantastic job. Congratulations to CCW Justin Wilson for a great win today.
A reminder that the Champ Car World Series continues next month from the land down under on Sunday, October 21st, with coverage of the Champ Car Lexmark 300 from the streets of Surfers Paradise, Australia. Again, that's Sunday, October 21st. Check your local listings for TV details. It's been a great event this afternoon here at the TT Circuit Assen. A brilliant addition to the Champ Car World Series calendar. My thanks to Bill Stevens in the pit lane, to James Hinchcliffe. My name is Jeremy Shaw. It's been a brilliant performance by Justin Wilson, and we're going to do it all again in a few weeks' time in Surfers Paradise.